This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. We are going to be talking lots of Jets. A loss last night in L.A. to the Kings, the only team that has successfully beaten the Winnipeg Jets 3 times this season. Is in the books. The team still 4 points up on the Dallas Stars, but now the Stars have a game in hand. They'll be back in action on Thursday when the Jets are in Vegas to take on the Golden Knights, one of the 2 other teams in the league that they have not beaten this year, the other being the Anaheim Ducks, who will be here for the final game of the regular season. Listen, we're going to hear from Scott Arniel. We'll discuss the game. Murat is going to jump on as well. We'll give his thoughts on what looked good last night, what didn't look good. I think those answers were pretty obvious to everyone that was watching the game. And, of course, what they'll need to do to get a better result, stay ahead of the Dallas Stars, and get a win against the Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow. We're also going to take a trip around the National Hockey League with our pal Chris Meaney from NHL.com. His Habs with another huge win last night against the Florida Panthers, putting themselves in a great position to be the 8th seed in the East. And we'll get Meaney's thoughts on the Wild West right now with the surging St. Louis Blues, Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Vegas, the Los Angeles Kings, and don't forget about the Edmonton Oilers as well. So you can feel the countdown to playoffs coming right now, but there's still lots of work to be done for the Winnipeg Jets and other teams looking to solidify their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs and in the NHL's 16-team bracket. Later on in the program, with the Masters coming up next week, looking forward to bringing in my pal Pat Mayo, the PME, coming on the program. And we'll talk a little bit about the Valero and get some picks from Pat for this tournament this weekend, and then talk to him about, when's the best time to get your Masters bets in, as well as a contest that could send you, courtesy of our friends at CoolBet, to the Canadian Open and to see the Blue Jays in early June. So make sure to stick around for that a little bit later on. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, shout out to everybody listening on podcast, and a welcome to everyone with us in the live chat. Hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, what you're waiting for, hit that subscribe button. And of course, join us every day live, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. Central, right here on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. A huge thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners over at CoolBet Canada, Princess Auto. Great to have Prairie Toyota dealers on board, as well as Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Manitoba Battery, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Breezy Bend, F Apparel, fansfirst.ca, Little Brown Jug, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Boston Pizza, Breezy Bend, Royal Sports, the Winnipeg Jets, and we will get to a Why Not question of the day for Not Auto Corp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, come on in. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It was a late one last night, a little tired. 9:30 start, plus the pregame ceremony to honor legendary broadcaster Nick Nixon. 44 years, doing LA Kings games. Incredible, but it was a late start and kind of went the way we thought it was going to go. The way someone said it was like carbon copy of the game they played back in November. Jets struggling to get shots, goals coming at a premium, and you make a couple mistakes and it ends up in the back of the net. So, feeling okay, starting to get a little nervous about the standings. As I made a mistake when doing the title. I wrote the Jets are only 2 points up on Dallas, but it is actually 4 points up. But Dallas has a game in hand, but it certainly does feel like 2 points up when you look at the way Dallas has been playing
Yeah, you just are assuming that Dallas is going to win each and every night. Who they have? Nashville on Thursday?
It's kind of funny. Like Dallas, 7-1-2 in their last 10. You're like, oh, they don't lose. But hey, the Jets, 7-3-0 in their last 10 as well. So both teams very good, but coming down to the wire. And yeah, Dallas not active tonight. They'll be playing, hosting Nashville on Thursday and Pittsburgh on Saturday. This homestand, and then the Jets are, in Vegas tomorrow night, and Utah on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you have to hope that at some point Dallas is going to blow one of these games against teams that they will be heavily favored against. But you can't take anything for granted. And that is why, especially after last night, it seems inevitable that this is going to probably come down to the result of next week's game in Dallas between the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. April 10th, Thursday night. That will be the game. Now, before then, the Jets have a really tough run. I mean, you got Vegas, who they haven't beat yet this year. You've got Utah, who's played them very tight. And then you've got the hottest team in the NHL, the St. Louis Blues. So they can't think about that game against Dallas yet. There'll be plenty of time to do that on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. But certainly they'd like to get back to playing a little more mistake-free, because as we saw last night, those mistakes against top teams will absolutely kill you. And I'm not sure we've had a better example of that than last night in a long time for the Winnipeg Jets. You know, I'll disagree a little bit. I mean, I remember that game at the end of November against LA, Riemann. You know, the Jets were just not in the same ballpark with the Kings. I mean, they could not get through the neutral zone at all. They couldn't generate anything. Of the 20 shots that went on net, I'm not sure very many of them were from dangerous spots at all. I didn't feel that way as much with last night. I mean, I thought they got the puck inside better than they had done before, but man, you pay a price. I mean, you have to earn every space of inch, every inch of ice against the LA Kings. I did think it was a little sloppy at times. I thought the passing was off a little bit, and I thought that really led to some of the mistakes that absolutely killed the Winnipeg Jets last night. Listen, you know, the first one, I didn't like the pass from Colin Miller to Mark Scheifele, who then just tried to get it out unsuccessfully, got it to the blue line, and credit to the Kings, realizing there was traffic. It was a quick turnover, get it to the net, bounces off something, it goes in. Bad way to start things off. And then, you know, the next one, I mean, you can debate on how David Gustafsson got the puck, which was being moved up out of the zone. You know, I thought it probably could have been placed better. He did get it under control, and then he lost it and right back in. And again, credit to the Kings. This is that opportunistic things that the Winnipeg Jets do very well, frankly, to other teams. Cause turnovers, quick transition, and make the most of your opportunities. And that second goal was an absolute beauty, a 3-on-2 passing play where Kopitar had the wide open net, done deal, and it's 2-0. Now, from my perspective, Remo, you know, going to the break after the first period, you know, they were down 2-0, but they had done some things that, you know, I think that they liked better than in previous games against LA. And it was all going to be all about the next goal. And they got it. I thought there were some really good periods of play from the Winnipeg Jets in the second period. They got some momentum. They got it to within one. And then it was the biggest, most glaring mistake of them all last night. I mean, Big Stan, we'll get into this more. I mean, I was really complimentary of the first 3 games that he played, less so last game. I mean, last night is just inexcusable for a guy in that position. I mean, you need to take care of the puck first and foremost, make great decisions. And, you know, I know you had a couple good games and are probably feeling pretty good. You know, when when big players like that think that they are Cale Makar, bad things happen. And not only did he lose the puck, but fell down trying to turn around, and then the next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. And I mean, that one last night was just an absolute backbreaker, Remis. And, you know, for a team that was doing everything they could to get back into the game and feeling pretty good, one mistake, again, capitalized on LA, and it was pretty much lights out at that time.
Yeah, I'll say it was. I agree with you. I don't think, you know, the game the Jets played was that poor. You look at Money Puck, they're on top of the deserve to win meter. You look at the shots, they had some close to that, but there weren't enough of them. Only 19. They seem to struggle to get 20 shots against the Kings. The power play, which has been, the backbone of this team all year, has gone cold lately, and it did go 0 for 2 last night in chances to make it close there at the end. Credit to Nikolai Ehlers for drawing 2 penalties, but they came out really hard in the second, had some incredible pressure early, and Cole Perfetti, who we've been talking about for weeks, how he's breaking out, he's having such a great season, gets out of the penalty box and unleashes a snapshot. I mean, he can, him as a playmaker, but he's had some great snipes, and he picked the corner there, a beautiful shot on a 2-on-1, and yeah, the Jets had all the momentum. You felt like, okay, they got one, now they're just within one. It seemed they had to scratch and claw, and I thought they had a lot of chances with the puck close to the net, but you go to shoot and it rolls off the stick, or you couldn't get it off. And, I don't want to dump all over Stan here, but I mean, it's hard not to. It's a 2-1 game, and you have a guy who's, you really saw the injuries to Pionk and Shen hurting them, where you have guys playing above their normal slotting in the roster. And you have a guy who's normally a third pair D, trying to go end to end, and gets picked off by Kuzmenko and goes down and scores. I mean, there's not much you could say. You have to know your role within the team, and you're not a guy who goes end to end. He's just a player trying to do too much. And I turned on my Twitter after that. I think I had 5 tweets in a row saying, poor puck management. But I mean, he's not. I stayed away from
social media in the aftermath of that goal. I was pretty sure I knew what we were going to see.
I mean, look, they only scored 1 goal. They didn't get to 20 shots on net. They didn't score on the power play. Connor Hellebuyck, I think his goal saved above expected would be in the negative in that one yesterday. I just got to double confirm that. But yeah, he's minus 1.79 goals saved. So it wasn't his best game either. But, a 2-1 game, you feel like it's close, and then it did suck away all the momentum, but they had chances to get it back. Again, they had power plays, had chances, and the Kings have just given them trouble all year. And it was kind of what we talked about yesterday. The Kings at home, very good team. Kings limiting shots like they've done against the Jets. They played very well, so credit to the Kings on their game.
I'll say this, knowing what's to come, regardless of who the Winnipeg Jets play in the first round of the playoffs, these games against LA, against Vegas, I'm sure St. Louis will be the same way, will be good preparation for the Jets for what's to come, with the elevated level, and just how much hard you have to work against good teams to generate offense to win hockey games. And, again, we'll hear from Scott O'Neill in just a second on what he thought of the game and, where the team moves from there. But it's pretty simple, and it doesn't matter if you're playing the Kings, if you're playing the Anaheim Ducks, you're playing, the Washington Capitals or the San Jose Sharks. If your puck management sucks, if you're not making clean passes, if you're turning the puck over, NHL players will make you pay. And the Jets paid a big price last night. And you are right. I mean, this wasn't just a matter of 3 plays that cost them the game, and otherwise they were all over them. I mean, far from it. But I think the game was played relatively evenly for the most part. And the difference was that the Kings capitalized on some ugly mistakes by the Winnipeg Jets and didn't make those mistakes against Winnipeg. So listen, there's lots to clean up coming out of this game. And to your point about the blue line, Reem, when we found out that Luke Shen wasn't going to be playing, and he is listed as day-to-day right now, everyone, hopefully he'll be able to go tomorrow against the Vegas Golden Knights. You knew that blue line was going to look a little off. Guys are going to be playing up in spots that they, don't normally play. Colin Miller got moved up to play with Dylan Sandberg on that on the second pairing. And then you've got Hayden Fleury back in the lineup playing with Stan, 2 lefties on a third pairing. And, listen, I don't know whether Stan was just trying to take more control and be more assertive or what. But it reminded me of an old saying that when a crusher decides to become a rusher, they quickly become an usher. And Stan needs to focus on keeping his game simple, doing the things that have made him successful at times this year. Making a quick first pass, getting it to his teammates, and focusing on the defensive side of the game. And I got a little excited last night, I think, on that play with the way that the momentum was going at that time, and ended up really costing his hockey team. And listen, being the lightning rod that he's been this year, you knew it was going to set off a bunch of alarm bells. But there was a bunch of other things the Jets probably could have done better to give themselves a chance. I mean, this is not all on one player. But certainly that was the biggest gaffe at the worst time that certainly ended up in a lot of ways being that deciding factor when it came to, the Kings being able to play with the 2-1 lead. And you give that team on home ice a 2-goal lead in the second half of the hockey game, not very many teams are going to be coming back from it.
Yeah, and you needed that goal. They weren't quite able to get it. And you mentioned the D pairings. Colin Miller, he was on for 2 goals against. I was surprised when looking at the 5-on-5 ice time that, you talk about guys playing elevated. Colin Miller was second on the team in 5-on-5 ice time behind DeMello. Morrissey, was maybe minute and a half behind them. I don't know if that was situations or whatever. Now, you include power play time. Morrissey was just behind Kyle Connor for the team leader. But you really see, the depth on defense, guys playing, above where they normally do in the lineup. Hayden Fleury stepping in with Luke Shennout, and Neil Pionk did skate in the morning. It seems like he's getting closer, so we'll have to wait and see. But they had chances on the power play late. It doesn't seem to be able to connecting the way they were. Maybe they're missing Velarde as well. We saw last year when he was out how much the power play suffered too. But it seemed like with Nikolai Ehlers in there this year on the first power play, it had really changed how they did things. But they're disappointing. I don't think it was like the worst game, but as you said, you make a couple mistakes, ends in the back of your net, and every point, every moment is just so much more magnified at this point of the year.
No doubt about it. Listen, let's here. Actually, let's throw this poll up. I'm interested in people's reaction to that game last night. And I don't know if you want to make some sort of a poll for reaction, but why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray? What are your takeaways from last night's game? Are you concerned about the lack of success against a team like LA that is, going to be playing a very tight playoff style for what that might means past game 83? I guess the good thing about this is that, if the Jets are going to be playing the LA Kings in the playoffs, that'll mean they're in the Western Conference Finals. So it's not necessarily about that team, but about how difficult it was for the Winnipeg Jets to get to those to get to those places to score goals and generate a little bit more on a team like that. Let us know in the chat what you think about what do you think about last night's game, and we'll get to some of that coming up in just a second in Fans First fan feedback. But let's hear from the coach. Scott Arniel spoke afterwards to the assembled media, and this was were his thoughts on the loss to the Kings.
We turned the puck over 3 times and ended up in the back of our net. I liked a lot of what we did. Our game plan against them, we did a good job getting through the neutral zone. There's a few times we let them get out of the zone on some of the forecheck situations. We didn't spend a lot of time on our end of the rink. But again, we made 3 mistakes and ended up in the back of our net.
What did you see from your team before you gave it the 2 quick ones?
The whole game. I thought there was lots. There was a lot of momentum for us. There was a lot of zone time for us. I don't know if we attacked the net quite as much as we needed to. They did a good job of boxing out and blocking shots, but we have that much puck possession. We gotta attack the net a little bit more. I thought in the second we didn't do it as much. In the third, I thought we did a better job of doing that.
What about the power play? Not a ton of chance, but you created.
Getting but at the end of the day, you have to attack the net, right? We've stressed on that all year long. You can get possession. You can, we did a good job getting in there, but you got to attack. They're an aggressive group, and we knew they were going to come. But when that split second where you've got them, you've got to get the puck to the net and try to, create the chaos down there. It was like our 5-on-5. We just didn't do that enough.
All right, so Scott Arniel, just to his thoughts on the overall game. Here's one more from the coach from last night post-game, just on what makes the Kings such a challenging opponent.
Well, they're extremely stingy. They don't give you a whole lot. They're the type of team that if you make mistakes, they pounce on it. But they're real good. They clog the middle of the ice. They play a lot like us. They try to take the guts of the ice away. They do a good job that way. And then they get some real good leaders that that play the right way. That have a couple of guys that have won cups and they do the right things. And they're a good team. Another real good team in the West.
Did it feel sort of like a measuring stick? Of course, you guys are top of the West, but against a team
like measuring stick?
Well, I mean, now 0-3 against the Kings. How does it feel like?
Hey, whoa. We're sitting on top right now. Okay, so I don't know if there's a measuring stick. We don't measure that way. We go about how we play hockey, how we go against each and every opponent. We lost 3 games. Just at the end of the day, those happen. They're all tight games, sort of empty netters at the end, that type of thing. But they're a really good team. They they're in a tight division themselves, so it is what it is.
What's the latest with Luke? Just didn't get it.
Just day to day. Yeah, just day to day.
All right, little update on Luke Schenn at the end. However, Remo, by far the most humorous part of that entire post-game availability was when presumably an LA reporter asked him if the Kings were the measuring stick, and Arnie did the whoa. We're still on top. And I kind of like that confidence from the head coach, reminding people that he's got a pretty damn good team, despite the fact that they weren't able to beat LA last night. And they're going to need to have that confidence in themselves going into Thursday against Vegas, another team they haven't had a lot of success recently against.
Yeah, I love seeing the coach defend his team, defend his players. And he said, look at the standings. We're looking at our game. We're not worried about anyone else. And again, Arnie seems like a calm guy, but he's got that competitive fire in him. Still as a former player, you see it when engaging with officials during the game. But hey, if someone's trying to put down the Jets in a post-game, press conference question, he's like, "Hey, whoa, come on!" Like it was enjoyable.
He gave the reporter a little bit of a scoreboard, or actually standings bit. That being said, none of that's going to matter come game 83 and game number 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, of which the Jets and the Kings will be in. It looks like LA is going to be playing Edmonton. Now, they are the best home team in the league. A big win last night for them because the Oilers beat the Vegas Golden Knights. Home ice seems like it'll be particularly important in that Edmonton-Los Angeles series. And for the Winnipeg Jets, as we well know, they're looking to stay on top of the division and allow Dallas and Colorado to beat the hell out of each other in the first round, as opposed to having to play Colorado in round 1 and then presumably Dallas in round number 2.
Yeah, sorry. Hold on. I sent Chris the wrong thing.
Okay, gotcha. Well, here, listen, I'm going to get into some fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number 1 spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. Fans First has no added fees. What you see on the site is exactly what you'll pay and not a cent more. And the best service when it comes to, and platform when it comes to reselling tickets if you've got an extra pair that you're not able to use. Check out the site today over at fansfirst.ca with no fans. I'm seeing, let's see here. The chat right now is concerned. Dorian Wasakase, I'm concerned. It just feels like Colorado first round at this moment. I mean, again, it was 1 win. They had a really good 3 games heading into that. But the Kings are a very, very good team. And boring Sean Monahan said, and this is kind of what looks into the playoffs, and I know there's some scar tissue from last year, I'm concerned about how the Jets struggle with the Kings' style of play. The fan feedback on the chat on the poll question, how concerned are you at the Jets' lack of success against the Kings this season? Not worried at all, 24%. Slightly concerned, 45%. Pretty concerned, 21%. And very worried, number 9 is 9%. So I think most of you are, still positive. But hey, there's going to be ups and downs and some bumps on the road, and that certainly was one last night for the Winnipeg Jets. Fan feedback brought to you by our friends at Fans First. Check out the site today, fansfirst.ca. By fans, for fans, no fees. All right, we're going to bring in our pal Chris Meaney in just a minute. Looking forward to that. Don't forget Pat Mayo coming on a little later on. We're going out east a couple times today. This is going to be fun. We're going to focus in on NHL stuff with Meaney, of course, now with NHL.com. But a huge thanks to Rolly's Transfer for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you're planning on moving this summer or spring, maybe you can do it in the WST truck that you'll see running around with our friends at Rolly's Transfer. Hey, they've been family owned and operated for over 60 years in Winnipeg and are the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. What you don't want to do is check out their website at rollies.com, and in the top right corner, you can click on Request an Estimate. Put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and supplies, and then let them know when and where you're planning on moving and what needs to be moved, and the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that Rollies is famous for. For your next move, make it Rollies, proud sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. A little bit of snow today, but the spring cleaning is coming. If you need a spring cleaning for your mouth, why don't you head on down to Dr. Terry and his great group of staff at the St. Vital Dental Center, who've been serving generations of Winnipeggers in St. Vital, but can help you maybe get that pop in the smile once again. Now, everything from simple teeth cleanings, checkups, root canals, dental implants, they really do it all. They've got a beautiful facility at 167 St. Anne's with free parking in the background to make it in and out as conveniently as possible. For all your dental needs, pop by St. Vital Dental Center, 167 St. Anne's. Find out more and make an appointment today at stvitalddental.ca. A big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. Man, it's not going to be long before Bomber training camp is here, and we're getting ready to get out to Princess Auto Stadium and have a few in the North End. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Right now, though, when you're thinking whiskey, when you're thinking so many things, think Canadian. When you're thinking Canadian whiskey, there is the original Canadian Club since 1848. Pick Canadian Club 100% rye, Canadian Club Classic on your next trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts. And just before we bring in Chris Meaney, don't forget, for all your battery needs, speaking of being Canadian and keeping it local, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery are there for you. And now with the second location in Winnipeg on Dovercourt Drive in the South End, and of course the original on Logan. Manitoba Battery is where you will find the best variety, the best selection, and the best prices on batteries for literally everything. So you can shop local, save money, beating the pants off the big box stores, and get the best service in town as well, because Manitoba Battery will deliver those batteries to you for free with any purchase over $60 inside the perimeter of Winnipeg. For all your battery needs, keep it local. Shop Manitoba Battery. Find out more online at manitobabattery.com. All right, let's get to some pucks. The guru himself, Chris Meaney, joins us, and I knew Meaney would be wearing an Eagles hat just to stick it to me one more time after the Super Bowl. Great to see you with everything except your headgear, buddy. Although, congratulations on a big win. How are you?
Hey, buddy. Doing well. Always appreciate the time, and chopping up with you is fantastic. Yeah, you got Mayo on later too, so you're going all the way out east here for the next little bit. And yeah, I did have to rock the Eagles hat. Hey, listen, you've had enough championships.
I do the same thing. I would absolutely do the same thing. No apologies necessary whatsoever. And folks, stick around for when Pat comes on. We'll do that heading into our Cool Bet segment. We've got a great opportunity for anyone that's thinking about sprinkling on a few bets for the Masters, a way that we might be able to send you to the Canadian Open. So looking forward to that. But how are you enjoying? You settled now at NHL.com? How's everything going with the new gig and employer?
Yeah, man, settled in. This is a really exciting time of the year. There's some nice playoff races happening in the NHL, and teams that are already locked in. Of course, your Jets here finish strong, can get the division, but yeah, loving it. The Ovechkin grade 8 chase has been super fun to follow all year. We're doing some cool things over at NHL.com. Looking at the edge stats and following everything and kind of, comparing some of his goals to Wayne Gretzky's goals, when he was, scoring all the time, how he scored, the nights that he scored, the situations, who was on the ice, who assisted it, and just kind of comparing, having some fun. And Crosby as well, right? Kind of all eyes are on Ovechkin, and certainly it's warranted, but Sid the Kid, we call him a kid, but he just broke a record the other day. In 20 seasons, he's averaged at least a point per game. So we had a cool edge story on him, and he's still bringing it, man, at his age and near the top of the NHL on 5 and 5 points. Nobody has more primary assists than him at 5 and 5. His Penguins haven't had a good season, but Crosby's been fantastic this year. So we're loving it. I'm loving my time in it.
You mentioned those guys, and we'll get to kind of the playoffs and the team in a minute. But I get it, and I've got a lot of time for a guy that is a franchise legend that's done what he's done for Pittsburgh to stay the course and be there for the rest of his career. But, just seeing the level that he's playing at and how much that team sucks, it is it's kind of sad that we won't see him in the playoffs, but kind of funny, Ovi and Crosby are always going to be compared together.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid the fact that game 82 this year is Washington at Pittsburgh. Right. And can you imagine if that was the game to break the record? It's almost the way the script writers would come up with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Following a lot, of course, with the NHL, when is he going to break the record? And I know a lot of people had circled that date. I mean, right, you couldn't ask for a better story, like you alluded to break it against Crosby. And I think about all the matchups that they had. I remember when they played each other in the playoffs, the Penguins and the Capitals years ago. And I think there was a game where they both had a hat trick and they were just trading chances back and forth. And they've had remarkable careers. And it's really, really cool what Ovechkin is doing and what he is doing at this point of his career, this age, being near the top and goals scored in the NHL, missed time with a fractured fibula. Like that's remarkable. And he didn't really miss a beat. He's got a career high shooting percentage, so he's scoring at his best pace ever. It's been pretty fun. And you're right, the Penguins have not been good. They've been atrocious, right? They really have been one of the worst teams in the league defensively. They've given up a lot of shots and a lot of goals. They've been on the wrong side of it all year long. And what Crosby's doing still, again, at this age, it's too bad. And we'll see what their team looks like in the offseason. What Dubas does, and it's got to be some sort of retool as opposed to a rebuild, just to see, because he's playing at an elite level still.
Meaney, what do you make of? Let's just give us your thoughts on the Jets from outside of the market right now. I mean, still hanging on to first. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think anyone realized just how soft Dallas's schedule was down the stretch right now. I mean, they've got 2 playoff teams, one of them being Winnipeg, in their last 11. And even when they haven't played particularly well, whether it's been Casey DeSmith standing on his head or getting a big goal from Jason Robertson, they've found a way to win. They've won their games in hand, and now they're knocking on the door. It kind of feels in Winnipeg that anytime the Jets let up or lose a game like they did last night, that makes it more inevitable that this is going to come right down to the wire between Winnipeg and Dallas, despite the season that the Jets have had.
Yeah, the Jets have had a phenomenal season, but they can't let up here. I think it's very important for them to win the division. You know this, your viewers, your listeners know this as well. To avoid a first-round matchup with the Colorado Avalanche is huge. We saw how great they were last year, how good Connor Hellebuck was last season, and how mediocre Colorado really was. And that's a series that the Jets dominated throughout the year. I remember they blew the doors off them heading
7-0
down the stretch of the season. That's right, in the regular season, and then Colorado, had their way. So not putting it lightly, they need to win the division. I don't think there's any question about that. I like where they're at as a team. I was kind of surprised that they didn't do anything significant at the deadline. I know roughly this time last year, the Monahan and the Toffoli additions I liked. It didn't work out. I like the sandpaper that they brought in with Shen and Tanev. I like those ads. Losing a guy like Gabriel Velarde, of course, anytime you lose somebody in your top 6 or somebody who's had a great season like that, it's really hard to replace. But that's what I would have liked to see from the Jets is just adding some depth, because I look at Colorado, and I wasn't crazy about them heading into this season, but they moved on from Georgiev to Blackwood. Wedgwood's a nice backup, and what they've done with flipping Mikko Rantanen for Brock Nelson, Martin Necas, Charlie Coyle down the middle of the ice. All of a sudden, this is a team that I have a lot of respect for. They got 3 lines. They're very deep down the middle of the ice. And you look at Dallas, they're probably the deepest team in terms of a forward group in the NHL. Right. I mean, Wyatt Johnson is one of the best kept secrets in the NHL, just a youngster having another good season. Mikko Rantanen now is clicking with Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson. You have Granlund, the guy that they brought in, and Matt Duchene's had a point per game season. He's been phenomenal this year. And then, you're going to have Tyler Seguin when the puck drops come playoff time. Jamie Benn, a lot of experience on that squad. Dananov is a 20-goal scorer that can't even get into the lineup on a nightly basis. And when he plays, probably on the 4th line. The one thing I have concerns about with Dallas is their defense, right? It doesn't sound like Miro Heiskanen will be ready to go round 1. If he is, it could be later on in the series. He may not be 100%. They have given up a lot of rubber. You're right. Casey DeSmith has been good lately. So has Jake Ottinger. But I think it's extremely important that the Jets, take care of business. The schedule is tough. I think they got to go into Vegas. They have to go into Dallas, I believe. They have a game against the Blues, who've won 10 straight. So it's playoff time now, and it's important for the Jets to get the division, because if you can avoid Colorado in the first round, you're going to want to do it. Let Colorado and Dallas play each other.
Yeah, and listen, it's not like the wild card teams are pushovers. I mean, you get the St. Louis Blues, you're getting the hottest team in the league. Although the way things are looking, I mean, if the Jets win the Central, they're winning the West, and they'll get the 8th place team. And I think it's probably more likely that the Wild are the 8th place team, considering what St. Louis has been doing on this heater for now like a month and a half.
Yeah, and at this time of the season, too, those teams are extremely dangerous. I mean, say what you want about the Canadians, and they wouldn't even be fighting for a playoff spot in the Western Conference, given, where those teams are in terms of the points. But, that's a team that's playing, playoff hockey, and they've been playing playoff hockey for a while. And I really, really like where the Blues are at. My goodness, Dylan Holloway is legit. And that was a great pickup by the Blues organization and Broberg. Those guys are having really good seasons. And then you have like a nice mix of youngsters along with some vets like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. We can call those guys vets. The blue line with Justin Falk and Parayko, back soon as well. Cam Fowler was a great addition. Binnington has looked solid since the Four Nations face-off. He's really turned his game around, and this is a guy that has a Stanley Cup win, and that on the way to winning the Cup. I mean, he had 2 Game 7 wins, I believe. I know that he had one in Boston, a Game 7 win, and I believe he had one against the Stars maybe in the second round. Was a do-or-die game that he was fantastic. So he's had some big-time pressure moments. He's had some success against Hellebuck going back to the Four Nations. So Blues aren't a team you want to play either at the moment, but I think that they're going to continue to win, and it will be the Wild. And they've hung around despite a lot of injuries. I know that Joel Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov are now skating. So if you get Minnesota first round, I would like the Jets' chances to win that series, but it's not going to be easy because, Kaprizov is elite. But the thing is that those 2 players have missed a lot of time this season, and it's tough to kind of just get back into the swing of things, and playing in Winnipeg is going to be a tough environment for Minnesota. But I'd say that they get the Wild. I like the teams that are in now in the West, I think, is what we'll see.
Well, exactly. And that's why it is so important to, stack the wins that you have to, and probably, as they say, win that game in Dallas next Thursday to make sure you're on top. Like, from my perspective, I'd rather play Minnesota than St. Louis. I'd rather play either of those teams than the Colorado Avalanche because, I mean, listen, it's part of the great nature of the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's a lot of awesome teams. There's only one team that's going to be raising the cup, and there's going to be 15 teams that deserve to be there that are going to be packing up the day after their last game, wishing that they could have continued on. And that's what makes the playoffs so great. But it doesn't matter that you had a great season if you can't get it done in round number 1. And I mean, there's going to be some great teams this year. Oh, I mean, we talk about the Central Division. The Atlantic is pretty much the same thing. I mean, Toronto's had a strong season. I mean, if they win the division, they'll be going up against Ottawa, and we'll have the 2 Florida teams going at it. So there still is a lot on the line. Last year, we often talk about, these teams are playing great at this point of the season. The Jets won 8 in a row at the end of last year, and we all remember Game 81 pounding Colorado 7-0. and then we're out in 5 games. Is this just natural recency bias that we live in, where we make so much of the way a team looks in the last week or the last 10 days? I mean, something like St. Louis, where you're talking about a much larger body of work, I think I'll put more into, but how important is it, other than figuring out where your spot is and getting where you need to be, is playing great in the past 2 weeks of the playoffs?
Yeah, it's a great question, because recency bias certainly is a thing, and I just talked about it with the Canadiens and playing, meaningful games and playoff hockey essentially over the last month or so. But I don't think anyone here believes that they're going to go on a run and playing the Capitals. I know they upset them in 2010. It was a pretty big gap between the Capitals that year and the Canadiens that year, who were also an 8 seed, upset Washington, and then later on Pittsburgh. But they were led by a guy in Carey Price, Carey Price and Jaro Halak were great that year. But I think it's important, certainly for some teams like St. Louis, kind of finding their footing, where they were kind of mediocre through the first couple months of the season, and hiring Jim Montgomery certainly turned their season around. And we're seeing some players who are, some players were part of that cup run a few years back, and a lot of their players have some experience. But I think it's more important for those teams to kind of find their footing. Like Florida playing mediocre here down the stretch of the season, that really doesn't faze me all that much, because they've been to the Stanley Cup Finals in back-to-back years. They're going to get a Matthew Tkachuk back come round 1. He's skating. Aaron Ekblad's going to be eligible to play after he serves his suspension for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So seeing them kind of quote unquote limp in, even though they've been in for a while, that it really doesn't faze me. But there's certain teams, again, like Toronto, it's very important for them to win the division, just like the Jets. Like, if you can avoid Florida and Tampa Bay, by all means, Ottawa's not going to be easy. They haven't beat the Senators at all this season. The Battle of Ontario, that's going to be a heck of a series if we see those two teams face off. But extremely important, I think, for teams like Toronto to head into the playoffs on a winning note, feeling good about their game, because they went through a lull of about 2 months where they were among the leaders in allowing shots and allowing goals, and their goaltending wasn't great. They were getting by on their power play. The penalty kill wasn't good either. So I think it's important for those type of teams that and the Jets are one of those teams too, right? Like, yeah, they were good down the stretch of last year, but these are teams that have to prove it come playoff time, and you want to go into the playoffs feeling really good about your game.
In a hypothetical first rounder that may or may not happen, but Dallas versus Colorado, who you got?
If you had asked me before the deadline, I would have said the Stars, despite Mikko Rantanen. Like, I loved where Dallas was at. I've been on Dallas over the past couple of years as a squad that has been knocking on the door to take the next step. They've been to the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back years, right? And they just lost to Vegas in a tight one, lost to the Oilers. And I just liked their overall makeup everywhere. And then Heiskanen goes down. I do have concerns about the defense. Thomas Harley's been fantastic, but they've given up a lot of shots. You talked about the goalies earlier. I think I would lean with Colorado. And just, I really, really like their deadline. I really liked it. I thought when they won the cup a few years ago, they lost Kadri. They just didn't have a second line center. Like, they tried JT Compher, they tried Newhook, tried a bunch of guys, and those guys are no longer there. Getting a guy like Brock Nelson, and now they're experimenting. They're moving Natchez away from McKinnon. Nichushkin, they're essentially unbeatable over their last 20 games since he's returned to the lineup. I think he's the key. Cale Makar is having another elite season for a defenseman, flirting with 30 goals. So I think they're extremely deep. Charlie Coyle is a guy he's made the playoffs every year of his career. He's never missed this Stanley Cup playoffs, Charlie Coyle, and he's going to be their third line center. He can play on the second power play. You're going to kill penalties for you. Like, that just makes them so much deeper down the middle of the ice, and Lehkonen and Duren. So I'll lean with Colorado. They've also had good goaltending in Blackwood. I think the biggest difference between the Stars and the Avs is the defense. So yeah, it's going to be extremely tough series to call. It's going to be phenomenal. It's too bad, with this format, that's what we're going to see, but it's still going to be highly entertaining. And last year we saw first round of Vegas and Dallas, and that was extremely entertaining as well. So it's too bad that one of those teams have to get bounced in the first round, but I'll lean with the Avs right now, Hustler.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating question, and I think there's a good chance listen, I hope we see those teams play in the first round for obvious reasons here in Winnipeg. But the one question I have about Dallas, and this is going up against Colorado and against Winnipeg, is just their team speed. Like they literally tick off all the boxes, but they don't play at a pace of either Winnipeg or Colorado. Now, if they're able to dictate the pace, they'll win most of those games. But the one question mark I have about Dallas, especially if the games are being called relatively tightly, is whether they, are able to keep up. I mean, we've seen the Jets really take advantage of, mistakes, kind of like what LA did to Winnipeg last night, and turn those into odd man rushes. And listen, when the Jets are turning the puck over and having quick transition, they are very, very dangerous. And Colorado is the exact same thing. And that, like, I believe, on paper, I think you could make the argument that Dallas is the team. I do wonder though what they'll be able to do against elite world-class speed that they're going to get from either a Winnipeg or Colorado.
Yeah, and you're spot on. And some of the cool things that I've loved here since my time at the NHL is just the edge stats and the player tracking they've done over the past few years. And you see a lot of Colorado guys up at the top checking boxes. I mean, Martin Necas has the second highest max speed at 24.49 miles per hour. And you look at some of the guys like Nathan McKinnon leads the league in 22 mile an hour speed burst. Necas is third. You look at 20 mile an hour speed burst. McKinnon is first. He has nearly 130 more 20 mile per hour speed bursts than Connor McDavid, who we all know is extremely fast. And he is number 2 in that category. Then you look at defense and you see Cale Makar there as well. And I mentioned Brock Nelson. Like, this is a guy that's in the 90th percentile in speed bursts as well. He's very quick for a big guy. It kind of like he's very sneaky in terms of his speed. So absolutely agree with you, right? The Avs are a team that plays with a lot of pace and a lot of speed. And I think the Jets can play with that kind of pace as well, right? Dallas is more, you kind of said it, like methodical. They have like some experience, but Mikko Rantanen's not going to blow you away with the speed, and Hintz is pretty fast, but Jason Robertson's up at that top line. He's not going to blow you away with the speed either. Harley does check some boxes. I think the biggest thing is Miro Heiskanen. Like, that's just a guy that logs 24, 25 minutes a night and plays in all situations, power play, PK. He can do it all. So, it's like if the Jets lost Morrissey or if the Avs lost Cale Makar or to a lesser extent Devon Taves, I mean, these obviously you're going to feel that. But yeah, the Avs can play with a lot of pace and I mean, better than anyone in the NHL. They check a lot of boxes.
What are you hearing about Heiskanen? Like, what's the best case scenario for Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I heard from Stars management was that neither him or Sagan were likely to play until round 1, and Sagan's been skating for quite some time, so it does sound like he's going to be good to go round 1. And the latest thing I heard is that the Stars most likely will be without Miro Heiskanen for the opening round, at least the start of it. Of course, if it goes 7 games, you're looking at just over 2 weeks potentially. So the deeper a playoff series goes, the more likely we'll see him. But I think that the Stars are prepping for life without him in the first round. I know that Cody Ceci was a pickup, and they tried to get some depth at the deadline at the defense position to kind of cover their bases, but I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I do believe that they said, just after the deadline that they don't expect either of these guys until the first round, and things are looking a lot better for Sagan than Murat at the moment. Chris
Meaney's with us from NHL.com. Heading over to the East. How are your Habs doing it? I mean,
oh man,
listen, back-to-back wins over Florida, 8 games left in the season. They got a 2-point cushion on Columbus and the Rangers. Like, it's seeming more and more realistic that the Habs could actually get in as an 8th seed.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story. I think too, like Columbus too, like those two teams, their point projected total from Vegas was like 67.5 for Columbus, and they cruised by that weeks ago, and then the Habs were at 70, and they've passed that as well. Montreal is one of those teams that plays with a lot of speed as well. Like when I was talking about the speed burst, the Canadians are right there, just behind the Avs, of course. I look at Lane Hudson. Like, Suzuki's having a breakout season, and if you follow the Canadians over the past few years, you say, yeah, Suzuki's a good player. He's an underrated player. In the bubble was kind of his coming out party when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. He was matched up against the Leafs top line. He was matched up against the Jets top line. Played Vegas in the third round, and they were overmatched against the Lightning. But he had some playoff success early on in his career, and he's having a career season in terms of goals and points. He's been electric since the Four Nations face-off, call it a snub or not. He has really picked up his game. Cole Caulfield's among the leaders in 5-5 goals. They get a lot of offense from their top line. Slafkovsky's having a really good second half. Just like last year, he was kind of quiet in the first half. He's had a good second half. And then, like, there's certainly, it is surprising because they really don't have a center too. Like Kirby Dach was having an okay season. He was starting to play his best hockey at the time of the injury when they picked up line A, or when he was inserted into the lineup and playing with Newhook. It was a good second line. Right now, you know, you can call their second line a line of vets and Gallagher and Christian Dvorak and Josh Anderson. But I think that they're getting it done from their top line. A majority of their top line. Majority of their goals comes from their top line. And then Lane Hudson. Like, there isn't a player on the blue line that has more assists than Lane Hudson. He tied Cale Makar last night in terms of assists on the blue line. He's top 5 among defensemen in points. He's setting records. He's close to the most assists ever from a rookie. For Larry Murphy, chasing him down. He's inside the top 6 or 7 in terms of points from a rookie defenseman. He's logging a lot of ice time. He creates so much offensively with his skating ability and his vision. So a lot of those teams that are fighting haven't played great hockey, really, which has kind of opened up a door for them as well. But if you go back and look from around mid-December, I believe the Habs are 10th in points percentage overall in the NHL. So they played pretty good hockey over the past couple months. Is a decent sample size. They got through their tough stretch. That road trip wasn't very friendly to them. They looked awful against St. Louis and against Philadelphia, and Carolina really took it to them. But they're perfect 4-0 against the Panthers somehow this season. They haven't lost to the Senators yet. They've played a lot of those Atlantic teams pretty tight, and they got some winnable games coming up too. So we'll see. They got Boston coming up. They got Philly. They have the Blackhawks. They do have a couple tough matchups back to back on the road against Ottawa and Toronto, and then another one against Carolina. But they're hanging in this thing. I don't believe any team that gets in will upset the Capitals. I really believe in Washington. I think they've just had such a remarkable season and a great offseason, which has led to this. But yeah, the Habs are playing really good, and I think a lot of the credit deserves to go to Suzuki, Caulfield, and Lane Hudson. And Montembeau has been really good since the Four Nations break as well.
You know, it's so funny to think about, you know, the Habs winning 4 against Florida. Ottawa has owned Toronto, and that's a potential first-round matchup. And then, you know, we were going through our picks on the lock shop yesterday, and we were talking about that Buffalo-Ottawa game, and I'm like, I'm not touching Ottawa. They can't beat Buffalo. And sure enough, that happens again. The good thing for the Sens is that Buffalo will not be part of the playoffs. If we got Ottawa-Toronto in the first round, how dangerous a matchup do you think that is for the Leafs?
It is dangerous. Some teams just own certain teams. I know it didn't work out that way for the Jets and the Avs last year, but you're talking about it, and some teams just have success against other teams. And Ottawa plays a good brand of hockey. I mean, their offense, they're very streaky. They've been streaky all year long, much like the Habs. But when they're at full health, and I kind of like what they've done with their lines lately. I know Brady Tkachuk didn't play last night, and I think, you know, we'll just see, as the Sens do have a little bit of a cushion, it's very important to get him right for the playoffs. And, you know, he battled through an injury at Four Nations, and it took him a little bit of time to get back into the lineup. But I really like the mix of their lines. I love the Dylan Cousins edition, right? No shots at Josh Norris, but Dylan Cousins is more of a well-rounded hockey player. He's good defensively. He can kill penalties for you. He's on that first power play. So him and Drake Batherson and Dave Perron missed a bunch of time, but he's a veteran presence that you know will show up come playoff time. He has a lot of experience in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that trio's looked really good. Stützle's had a great season. Fabian Zetterlund was a nice pickup. He's playing alongside Tim Stützle. I know the production hasn't been there, but a lot of shot attempts, a lot of shots, throws his body around. And then Shane Pinto and Ridley Gregg are kind of like they're a pain to play against, right? They're physical, they're good defensively. So the Sens have 3 lines that can play good at 5-5. Claude Giroux is another guy that's got a lot of playoff experience. And then Jake Sanderson is an absolute stud. He was one of our breakout candidates or breakout players on the blue line, and you know he was called up for Four Nations towards the end. He logs a lot of ice time, can handle it, and then Allmark is, you know, he's had some really nice moments this year as well. I would pick the Leafs in that series, but I'll tell you what, I would say it goes 6 or 7, right? And it's not just because they've had success against Toronto. It's because of what we've seen from the core in Toronto over the past few years. I mean, you can't say that you'd feel great. Sure, you're not going to play Tampa or Florida in the first round, but you can't say you feel good as a Leafs fan that they're going to be able to go on a run. It's still going to be very difficult for them, whoever they face in that first round. But having home ice advantage, it would probably be the difference maker.
I mean, I'm so fired up to see Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs. And I mean, in a series like that with that much of emotion, I think emotional big part of it. I mean, that's something a lot of times has been lacking from the Matthews and the Marners before. And it will not be lacking on the Ottawa side of things. So, anyways, we'll see what happens over this last 2 weeks of the regular season, 8 games for most teams, and where it all finishes up before we start the round of the final 16. Chris Meaney's with us. Chris, fill us in on what people can find at NHL.com with your work as we get down to the last few strokes of the 82-game regular season.
Yeah, appreciate it, Hustler. We're doing some fun edge pieces, usually on a Tuesday and a Friday. We mentioned Sidney Crosby, and we've been following Ovechkin, updating all kinds of stats with every game that he does play. It's been pretty fun ride here to follow that. Yeah, I mean, for those that are playing fantasy hockey, we got a cheat sheet there down the stretch of the season, whether you're in a head-to-head format in the semis, championship week, rotisserie league. We got all the players to pick up and to stream. Things get weird at this time of the season. You kind of got to cut ties with the really good players. It's all about just getting the better of your opponents. So we got you covered there. We have daily picks from a fantasy hockey perspective, a betting perspective, DFS perspective, all there over at NHL.com/fantasy every single day. We have you covered. We have the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast on Mondays and Thursdays as well for you to listen to wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And we'll have all kinds of playoff stuff. I mean, come playoff time, we'll have playoff pool rankings. We'll have Stanley Cup brackets. We'll have you covered for all you poolies out there as well. So always appreciate it, Hustler. It is a really fun time. I've been in Hellebuck's corner the whole way, man, for the heart. I talked about it, my first experience on SiriusXM NHL. Talked about Hellebuck at 40-1 at that time to win the award. I know him and Leon have gone back and forth here over the past couple days, but I think we're going to see Hellebuck win the award. I think he deserves to win the award, and that'd be the first goalie since Carey Price, and I believe just the third since 2000 to win the award as well. So he checks a lot of boxes. I know I've said that, checking boxes, but he does when it comes to some of the edge stats. He's had a phenomenal season. Over 70% of his games greater than a 900 save percentage. He's been awesome for them this year, and I think Jets fans should be excited about the potential.
Well,
run.
for sure. It seems, I mean, just like Draisaitl was 4-1 when he was injured. He came back and it was a pick 'em yesterday. And now one game, the Jets lose, and all of a sudden it's Leon minus 169 and Helly plus 135. Kind of feels like, this is going to be determined over these last few games. And obviously Hellebuck putting up historic numbers. It's about finishing the job and the Jets finishing the job and staying on top of the division. But thank you. Keep on preaching to the choir for us for Hellebuck. Helly for heart. Hashtag Helly for heart.
Helly for heart.
Meaney, thanks for doing this, pal. Let's catch up before we drop the puck on the playoffs.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good show with Mayo. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. There's Chris Meaney. Make sure to give him a follow on X and check out all of his work at NHL.com. You can follow him at simply at Chris Meaney. All right, we're going to get to the Jets with Murat coming up in just a minute. Big thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. They are synonymous with Winnipeg, founded and headquartered right here in the Peg, and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you: Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and of course out west in Brandon. And at Princess Auto is where you're going to find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see him in store, or get those ideas rolling and shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Guys, if you're looking ahead to spring and realize that wedding season's coming up, there's grads, or you just need to up your menswear game, F Apparel's the spot to do that, folks. 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom men's suits starting at $400. Custom shirts, untucked and tuck styles, chinos, golf pants, incredible selection of menswear accessories. And on top of it all, 2 great promos heading into spring. If you've got a Manitoba grad in the family or you are graduating, pop down to F for a new suit and they'll hook you up with a free shirt and tie. And of course, great deals for wedding parties as well as the wedding go-to people for years in Manitoba. You guys need suits for the big day. Take advantage of a great discount at F Apparel when the wedding party gets their suits at F. 190 Smith Street's where you'll find them. Find out more information or book a fitting online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. And I got to shout out our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Can't wait to get out there with our Mark Larveld, who was the big auction winner for the HSC Foundation. And we'll be hopefully heading there later on in the summer as well. If you're thinking about maybe doing something a little different this summer, staying in Canada, staying in Manitoba, why not check out one of the jewels of the province, Aikens Lake Fly-In Fishing Lodge. You can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg with world-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality from the Trent family and the Aikens team. You'll find them online at aikenslake.com. Check out there for availability and options for the 2025 fishing season. And of course, you can follow them on all their social channels. Coming up on at all the social channels at Aikens Lake, Insta, Facebook, and X as well. All right, we're going to bring in Murat right away. Do want to remind you folks that Pat Mayo is coming up. We've got some details on what is a really cool contest that might be able to send one of you cool bettors out to the Canadian Open in June. So we'll do that, but let's get Murat in here and get things going. And of course, this segment is a presentation of your Prairie Toyota dealers who've got a great new contest that just launched. And the grand prize, Jet fans, includes a signed Mark Scheifele jersey and a signed Connor Hellebuck jersey and some great WST merch as well. Retail value almost $1,000 on this prize. What you're going to need to do is enter for your chance to win. Visit the Prairie Toyota dealers on Instagram at Prairie Toyota Dealers, and go to Facebook as well at Prairie Toyota to enter. And you can also click on the link in the description of this episode to take you to the sites to sign up and enter for the contest. Contest closes on April 3rd, so get on that today. Open to residents of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. And of course, your Prairie Toyota dealers also want to remind you to get in and go. Visit Shop Toyota today. Your Prairie Toyota dealerships offer a wide variety of selection of vehicles. Forge Toyota's commitment to quality, including fuel-efficient hybrids, perfect for city driving, and SUVs to make the most of the seasons. Experience the latest safety and technology features. Browse their inventory and schedule a test drive in your dream Toyota today. All right, let's get Murat in here and pick away at last night's tilt. What's going on? It's great to have you on the program as always. Oh, hold on a sec. We got to get your the mic on there. Reem, we got that?
Hello.
There we are.
One sec. I might have to. I don't know why it doesn't select right away.
It'll come
3
in
weeks in a row
with
here.
with the echo.
We're good now.
Murat, how are you, pal? What's going on?
I'm doing well. Enjoying some of the snow melt out here.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, we were getting some of it earlier, but it's melting as soon as it comes down, and the sooner the better. And of course, we've got playoffs just around the corner. But maybe a little Jets may be reminded of what's to come during the playoffs. Big teams, tough teams that don't give you a lot, and you make mistakes, and they will make you pay. What were your takeaways from last night's loss in LA?
Yeah, I think it would be a pretty frustrating loss as far as Jets fans go. You know, the Kings are such a stifling team. They make it hard to get through the neutral zone. Once you're through the neutral zone, which the Jets did have success doing, they also make it extremely hard to get to the middle of the ice. Once you're in the middle of the ice, which the Jets did do, and they did get to those spots on occasion, you got to bury. And there are a few of Winnipeg's best opportunities didn't lead to shots last night. So you put that in the mix. You make LA, or you have LA making Winnipeg work for every inch of ice. And then you make sort of the mistakes that the Winnipeg Jets made on the goals that they gave up. And I think, like, I can feel this simmering, like, angst in Jetsland right now. And I think some of the things Winnipeg did well got lost because some of the mistakes they made were so bright and shiny and game changing.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some, iffy outlet passes before and they'll get it out. I mean, last night, it just seemed like, right from the get-go in the first period with that pass from Miller to Scheifele and then unable to be cleared and end up in the back of the net, that the LA Kings were going to be making the Winnipeg Jets pay for those mistakes. And, the David Gustafsson that went to 2-0. It seemed like they got their game back after that, though. I mean, I liked the way they were playing for a good part of the second period. You get the Cole Perfetti goal and it's game on. And then, as I said earlier in the program, I've been very complimentary about how Stan looked in the first 3 games coming back from being in the press box for a while. I was less enthused with the game on the weekend against Vancouver. And then last night was the exact thing that will prevent him from being a regular in the lineup. I mean, not keeping it simple. I mean, how did you read that third goal? I mean, where was the decision? What should have happened? And once it went in, I mean, it really did seem like that took all the wind out of the Winnipeg Jets sails.
Yeah, it was a worst case scenario basically from start to finish. And if you do this at, a 3,000 foot view, one of the worst case scenarios is that Neil Pionk and Luke Schenn were out of the lineup such that Logan Stanley's importance skyrockets. You go even a few thousand feet higher than that, and you'd like Winnipeg to have insulated itself a little bit better against this type of need, where you have all of Stanley, Miller, and Fleury in the lineup in a big game. What if that's the playoffs? That's going to be an issue. The Florida Panthers won the Cup playing 6D last year. You got to go back over a decade for the last time somebody pulled it off. Teams need 7, 8, 9, sometimes more than that in terms of defensemen to go through a long run. And you see, Winnipeg struggles when they're pushed up ahead of the lineup. So we can talk about all the other ones. You can talk about Miller and Fleury. You asked me about Logan Stanley. And on that play, you see him trying. You see him committing to an offensive rush when he is on his game, when he's doing things that help. He's actually a decent transition player. He has, I think, better offensive instincts a lot of the time than defensive instincts. But that's a situation where if you're going to make a play, if you're going to make a move around the forechecker when your forwards are gathered up at the offensive blue line and you've got one guy back, that's honestly a fine thing to attempt. You have to get it right. And I think that Logan Stanley doesn't necessarily have the middle of the ice agility to be making that play on Andrei Kuzmenko, who already made a pickpocket or two earlier in the game. That's a case of execution. I actually don't even mind trying something, even if it freezes up some of those attackers Winnipeg had at the offensive blue line. But I think it sort of shows us Stanley's limited skill set in that regard. That's not a move that's going to be his bread and butter. It's not going to be his success in the NHL if he finds success in the NHL. And then when he's pickpocketed and you see him dig in to try to turn back and make a back check on the play and he wipes out along the boards, that is the worst case scenario. And the unfortunate thing is his changes of direction do sometimes look like that. That's not an isolated thing. This is something we have seen Logan Stanley get exposed with. So you sort of saw all of the worst possible versions of that moment play out. His change of direction, his agility was sort of exposed on the play. To have him go down like that and then to have Kuzmenko just skate up and score straight away, I mean, that's what Winnipeg should be worried about if they commit to him in terms of deep playoff minutes. I guess that's the end of the rant. I think that's a legitimate concern moving forward, and it's one Winnipeg maybe should have been aware of heading into this moment.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, you make a good point. There was no Neil Pionk and no Luke Schenn. They were out of the lineup last night. I mean, it was all hands on deck. Fleury and Stanley were the third pairing, and maybe that meant there was a little bit more on one of those guys, although frankly I probably would have been more comfortable with Fleury being the guy that was carrying the puck up than Stan. Regardless of that, as we look ahead to the playoffs, let's assume best case scenario, Neil Pionk is back healthy, Luke Schenn is back and healthy. How do you think the blue line looks for game one, the top six? Is it what they were in their first incarnations coming out of the deadline with Schenn on the third pairing along with Fleury? Or is there a possibility that Stanley's part of that group? And if he is is that a Stan Shen pairing?
Yeah, I don't like the idea of a Stanley Shen pairing because I just think it'll spend time in its own zone and too much time in its own zone. I like Luke Shen's ability to protect the middle of the ice. I like his ability to find a short outlet pass. I don't like him stretching up the ice. I don't like him in transition. And offensively, that's a weak element of his game. So then if you're deferring to Logan Stanley to help lead the transition and comparing it to what you've just seen, that's a tough spot and a tough look. Like that for me is only D-zone draws, pray that they defend the middle of the net, the middle of the ice as well as they can. And then you're looking at chips out and the puck being brought right back in. And you mentioned earlier, you didn't necessarily love that game against Vancouver for Logan Stanley. Well, one of the things that he did in that game was several times just pass the puck out of Winnipeg's zone and put it on a Canucks player's stick. Yes, it gets the puck out of the zone, but it's also a giveaway that helps key transition attacks. And I think that's what you would see from that pairing if you saw it at any length. At the same time, the Jets do like their size, and that I think played a big role in why Stanley was such an important option for them prior to the trade deadline. I do think it's extremely notable that when Shen arrived, the first look was Fleury on the left side there, because I think Winnipeg was leaning on Stanley for their perceived size and physicality. Size not perceived. Obviously, he has that. Physicality perceived. You'll note last night, net front scrums, there was one post-whistle play in the third period where Cole Perfetti was trying to make something happen. He ate a bunch of cross-checks in the lower back with Logan Stanley right behind him. A big guy's not deterring that type of play. So ideally, Hayden Fleury gives you such a quality version of himself that he's the obvious choice to play that role. And I think the unfortunate thing we've seen is that he hasn't separated himself from the pack. I really liked his start to the season prior to his top four push. Lately, I don't think we've seen enough to say that's an automatic. And now you've got me wondering, can Colin Miller play on his offside? Can Luke Shen do it? Can you go righty-righty on that third pairing and hope for the best in that regard?
Yeah, it is going to be something that I think sort of develops over these final games of the regular season, depending on, when Pionk is back. Fingers crossed that Shen's able to play tomorrow against Vegas and they can sort of set that top six and be ready for prime time come the playoffs. I was going to ask you about power play in general. Before we get to the power play and if they're going to make any changes, what do you make of their lack of success at 5-on-3? They've had some extended 5-on-3s over the course of this last month. And for a power play that had been clicking at 5-on-4 at a historic pace, obviously they've cooled off a little bit. It seemed strange that they weren't generating more at 5-on-3. And Murat, as you well know, when you get those opportunities and don't make anything of it, it can be huge momentum shifts to the other side. Not to mention, there's a good chance you'll probably be getting a penalty at some point. Any theories or thoughts on the lack of success at 5-on-3 before we talk about the overall power play heading into the playoffs?
I'm of two minds on this one because the other night, was it the Vancouver game where there was a 5-on-3? It was a home game that I was at. So I looked it up because I saw all the outrage about Winnipeg being awful at 5-on-3s, but they had scored 4 5-on-3 goals over the course of the season, which tied them with a bunch of teams for 5th most in the NHL. So it's not as though they're awful at it. That's for sure. I don't know what the rate is, what the per minute goals, all that sort of stuff, how many opportunities they've had and, all that sort of stuff. But they're towards the top half of the table. They're in the top 10 of the table when it comes to actual goals scored. So I don't know. I'm not leaning so hard into they're absolutely miserable there. Sometimes when you have a couple of them in in close proximity to each other that just don't look the way you want them to, I think they stick in memory a bit disproportionately. At the same time, when a team is first for most of the year and second now in the power play as a whole, maybe being tied for 5th is underwhelming. When they look so dynamic and dominant and they seem to have plans for just about everything in every other power play context, watching them pass it around the outside is, it's going to be a little bit of an underwhelming visual given what we've seen from them so far. I haven't I'm not sure to the degree that they have as many 5-on-3 plans as they do in other situations. And I say that because one of the biggest strengths that they have as a unit, both units, is the pre-scout. The Davis Payne pre-scout of the penalty kills they'll be facing. They come into each game with a few sort of set ideas about what they might try based on their skill set and the opponents and what they tend to give up. Does this mean that they haven't focused on 5-on-3 the same way they have at 5-on-4? I'm not sure. I mean, if this becomes a thing where multiple, key stretch run games or playoffs, we don't see it work, okay, I'll sound the alarm. But I'm not there yet just because they have scored goals.
Now, what about the power play overall, where they're at? I mean, that has been such a difference maker for the Jets through the majority of this season that's had them on top. They've come off it a little bit. They're missing Gabriel Velarde. I guess two-parter. Thoughts on where the power play is right now, and in Gabriel Velarde's absence, if they make a change for tomorrow against Vegas or on the weekend, what do you think that first change will be?
Yeah, I guess overall, for me, it starts with what makes a power play dangerous, and what makes Winnipeg's power play dangerous is when you have more options that are legitimately good scoring threats than a PK can take away. And when you have Velarde healthy, almost like everybody is a threat to make a play that sets up a teammate or score themselves, every single one of those 5 players. And you don't get that on a lot of power plays around the NHL. Even in Winnipeg, you used to have guys that were designated passers just about and designated shooters. Everybody on that top unit, when healthy, is a great distributor of the puck. They've done a really good job of making themselves available for each other. When one guy gets the puck, other players are moving, pivoting into space. When you take Gabriel Velarde away from that, he's one of the best stick handle in a phone booth, make a play with his head up type of players. So the reads he's making beside the net exploit defenses. If a shot's the most dangerous play, he'll usually make it. If cutting across the net is the most dangerous play, he'll usually make it. And he's a great distributor of the puck as well. So that does take away quite a bit of what makes them dangerous. At the same time, the other 4 guys left are still great offensive players. For me, part 2 is, Alex Iafallo, I get it. I get that he goes to the net. I absolutely do. He scored. He's already got a power play goal since his promotion, hasn't he? So there's some reasons to believe that there's strength there. But for me, the one thing that you lose with him is that everybody's a multi-threat type of player. I don't rate his playmaking near what Gabriel Velarde is, and I actually hold it below Cole Perfetti as well. So even if Iafallo is a great bet to get to the net front and battle there and all that sort of stuff, and has scored, so give the coaches credit for that, I think if you're looking for each player to be able to pick the defense apart, choose the best option depending on what's in front of it, I think Cole Perfetti's got a better sense of that and a more dangerous shoot/pass sort of option to him. And I think that's the place that you ideally want to go. And for a good example of that, just think of last night. That third period power play looked dangerous. It looked like a power play until Iafallo tried a sauce pass across a seam, got picked off. Winnipeg's top unit got sent the other way, and it took a while for them to get going again. So I just think it's about options. And yes, taking Perfetti off of power play 2 would gut power play 2 a little bit. It'd be all meat and potatoes and none of that sort of read and react, or less of that read and react, pardon me. I think that the way that Winnipeg's playing, I would support that and just give PP1 a whole lot of ground to run with.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured that where you'd go. I mean, listen, we talked a lot about Cole lately. He's playing great. He scored in back-to-back games. I mean, he is seemingly up for the challenge. The one hesitancy I think the coaches would have would be not having on that second power play unit. I mean, where it really becomes less dangerous because of, the vision that he has and how he's able to dish and get his teammates involved. But I have to admit, if the top power play is suffering and you are prioritizing success with PP1, I think it makes some sense to give Cole a look up there. If they did want to go a different direction, I would imagine for a Iafallo type player that can really be a presence in front of the net, I think the next spot would probably be Nino Niederreiter. But for me, I would like to see Cole get an opportunity in the absence of Gabriel Velarde. And listen, that might mean a little bit more of the Lowry line without Ehlers after a power play to take over, because those guys have been out a little bit longer. But at a certain point, it was great to have two power play units running the way they were. They got to get back to having the one that will be dangerous and have that sort of impact that it did for the majority of this season, because we know how important it was to getting all the wins.
Yeah, if you have the option of fixing a first serve or a second serve, you choose the first serve, right? Like the Jets give that unit first dibs on most power plays. They score most often. They usually play over half, all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to address one thing, that's it. Your Niederreiter thought also makes sense if they go to that approach. If that's the case, I don't want to say you want to take that type of playmaking out of that player's hands, but there probably does need to be an adjustment that asks them to make less of those cross seam passes that IFL got burnt on in that one instance. To be fair, last night.
So it's on to Sin City tomorrow for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, just thoughts on another team that the Jets haven't beat, the task at hand for the club. And I mean, what, in your opinion, Murat, what needs to happen tomorrow for the Jets to have a different result than they did last night in LA? We could obviously start with, don't turn the puck over the way they did. I think that goes without saying. But the keys to beating a team like Vegas for Winnipeg as currently constructed.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that Vegas is the same type of stifling, though they are a great elite team, that the Los Angeles Kings are. It's kind of funny, actually. Like we have talked about, well, hey, what's better to play, the Wild or what if Winnipeg ends up in second, has to play Colorado? That conversation, everybody's had it, right? We're all looking at the standings. But there are some things about LA especially, and Vegas also, that actually, if you're looking specifically for a matchup nightmare for Winnipeg, those two might be the teams that have been the most challenging. I agree. Like they're such good counterpunchers, both teams, right? And if you want to beat Winnipeg, put Connor Hellebuck in situations that he's not expecting, that are extremely fast transition offense situations, and that's force Winnipeg to make turnovers like it did on those 3 plays leading to goals against yesterday. Vegas has historically been one of the fastest teams in turning defense into offense as well. They get the puck up ice in an awful hurry. They're great counterpunchers, and I think that when you have great two-way players like Mark Stone and Jack Eichel and go out and throw out that lineup, plus defensemen who've moved the puck really well, that's a great recipe for that. So for Winnipeg, a lot of it is execution. Don't make those giveaways, sure. Get the puck deep instead of making that dangle, sure. Offensively, though, I think that it's also worth talking about that. Some of Winnipeg's best scoring chances in the last few days, including their wins, have not necessarily resulted in shots on goal. And I don't think that's a major systemic problem that needs a 5-alarm sort of fire. But you would like Winnipeg's top scorers just to execute, just not to misfire, just not to miss that shot, because you know that for the most part, they do get that job done, and you really believe in them to start burying as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, come playoffs, I mean, you got to make the most of your chances. The LA Kings are a perfect example. They did that last night, and big reason, well, listen, the Jets opened up the door. They walked right through it 3 times last night, and that certainly was the difference in that hockey game. Before we go, we've talked about Cole Perfetti and the power play and the blue line. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what you've seen from Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton playing along with Nikolai Ehlers as of late.
Yeah, I generally liked it. I also thought that Adam Lowry was a big part of keeping Winnipeg in the fight yesterday. I thought that he won a lot of battles on the boards. I thought he did a good job of making space for his line mates. I think one of the things that has kept Mason Appleton among coaches' favorites for so many years has been his read of what teammates are likely to do. Like, I think he defers to line mates in a particularly good way, if that makes sense. And you saw him looking for Nikolai Ehlers with some dangerous pass attempts in the offensive zone. Maybe the execution wasn't necessarily there, and that's one of the drop-offs that you have in that situation. I also thought that Nikolai Ehlers was flying, and you need that against a neutral zone 1-3-1 plus some modifications like the Kings have. Drew 2 penalties. That gave Winnipeg a hope. I don't think anything about the Jets' loss was for a lack of effort. And if you were looking for guys who were absolutely maxed out in terms of their effort to try to fight through all the stuff that LA was putting in front of them, I thought that line would be a good place to start.
Yeah, listen, I've had a lot of time. I think Appleton's feeling pretty comfortable knowing where he needs to be a difference maker. And I mean, Ehlers is just, Ehlers is making things happen. And yesterday, I mean, drawing 2 penalties. I mean, doing everything he can to help this team win. And I'm actually pretty excited about what that line might be able to do in the playoffs, because we know Adam Lowry is going to bring his A game. And you look at what Lowry's done in the last couple playoff series when a lot of guys weren't at their best. He was the one trying to drag his team along. And Ehlers seems to be on a bit of a mission as well. What's cooking at the Athletic as this road trip continues before the team comes back for that big one on Monday against the Blues?
Yeah, today I got a piece up that sort of talks about how last night changes the playoff picture in the West. And, maybe it's not quite as doom and gloom as folks say. We can talk about Dallas's incredibly easy schedule and how Winnipeg's a little bit tougher. But in NHL terms, in a league of parity, the difference between opponents with a 5.61 winning percentage and a 5.23 winning percentage, it could be a lot worse. Believe me, it could be a lot worse. Parity actually keeps things where Winnipeg's still in control of its destiny by and large, and I like that for them. I think this is a good kind of test for them. I also think one of the topics I just can't stop myself from being interested in is that 8-game win streak at the end of last year, and maybe the sense of false security it brought. The Winnipeg Jets over their last 10 games have a better share of expected goals, and at 5-on-5, a better control of flow of play than that team did during its 8-game win streak. And in fact, if you go purely by expected goals, by public models, the Jets are first in the NHL over their last 10 games. So if we're going to talk about, all these permutations of, hey, the division's getting tougher to win, and it is, the challenge is there. They might not win it, even though I think that they're still in the driver's seat. I think that it's important to put a lot of this in context. The floor for this team is much higher than that one. And I think that it's worth talking about some of the reasons why this team is more worth believing in, despite nights like last night's in Los Angeles.
Head on over to theathletic.com. The latest how the Jets' unforced errors put their Central Division title hopes at risk. And of course, always taking your questions for the Murat mailbag as well. Thanks for doing this, dude. Have a great night and enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll catch up soon.
Sounds good, Huss. Thank you very much.
At WPG Murat, it is Muratatesh. That's his X handle. Follow him there. And again, theathletic.com is where you'll find all of Murat's work. Hey, listen, we're talking Jets. We're talking playoffs. Not sure if you've checked out the Royal Sports Instagram lately, but they've got some great pics of everything that's out on the shelves and on the racks getting ready for the whiteout and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Royal Sports is your number one sports superstore. And if you're a Jet fan planning to throw the whites on, I'd get down there sooner as opposed to later, because as the excitement builds to get back to Canada Life Center with the whites on for the playoffs, Jet fans are jumping on the opportunity to take advantage of the incredible selection at Royal Sports. They've got hoodies, they've got player t-shirts, they've got jerseys, they've got white shades, they've got painter suits. You name it, they've got it. One stop for all of your playoff needs waiting for you at Royal Sports. Of course, they got new Major League Baseball stuff in, and hey, spring is pretty much here. Bikes, Yeti coolers, so much more. You got to see it for yourself at Royal Sports, but definitely give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops, sale information, and great examples of what's waiting for you to get ready for the whiteout over at Royal Sports. And hey, it was a late one last night. We're going to do it again tomorrow. And if maybe you got Friday off, or maybe you can squeeze a nap in tomorrow, get out to Boston Pizza with your friends for the game. Nowhere better place to watch the Jets than BP. Pick a player contest to win great BP food and merchandise. And, of course, the big game on the big screen with full sound at all local Boston Pizza locations. You can enjoy those schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And, again, if you are staying at home, you can always order online over at bostonpizza.com. One other note, just going to bring back Remis in. I want to get to this new NHL Canadian television rights deal. They had a big press conference today with Gary Bettman. But speaking of next week, did see that the Jets just announced those white hats from the Heritage homestand were so popular that they have added the option for the fan appreciation game on the 16th of April against the Ducks, as well as the big one next Monday against the St. Louis Blues, to add one of those white snapbacks for just $10 with the purchase of the ticket. Head on over to winnipegjets.com for more details on all of that. And again, if you still want to throw a deposit down on season tickets, season package for next season, along with some friends, you can still get playoff tickets before they go on sale, what's remaining to the general public. Everything waiting for you over at winnipegjets.com. All right, Pat Mayo still to come. Some great info on a contest that could send you to the Canadian Open. But let's get Michael Remis back in here. And Remo, we got some more details on the Rogers 12-year extension with the National Hockey League that came out earlier this week. There was some pretty shocking news in the sports business world, and obviously had a variety of reactions from hockey fans across the country.
Yeah, I was waiting for this deal to expire, see what would it mean for the future of watching national broadcasts of NHL hockey in Canada. And the result is, it seems like nothing is really going to change. Rogers has the rights. They have the ability to sub-license it like they do to Amazon. That'll be happening for one more year. And it's the quote today was that it's very possible that will continue. Strong possibility was the wording, but they put out the release today, and a lot of people were asking questions. Would there be, what's going to happen with blackouts? I mean, you're scrolling the guide here, and we know there's regional rights and national rights, and Rogers has the regional rights for Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and half of Toronto. And they did note today in the release that they would see less blackouts. There wasn't really any specifics on that. They had to go to wait for the Q&A to learn more. But all in all, I think for fans, you just have the one national broadcaster now in Sportsnet, possibly Amazon after will remain. I think that's certainly a positive. That you're not like the NFL where you have one game on Netflix, one game on Amazon, or MLB's got like ESPN, Apple.
Oh, hey, whoa! Don't. Yeah. I'm not sure that still doesn't happen at some point. I mean, that is up to Rogers to do. We've got a clip actually on the sub-licensing to Amazon, so we'll get to that in a minute. But this is Rogers' pie to split up now.
Yes.
The NHL sold everything to them, much like they did for the last 12 years. It does look like Amazon is going to continue on. I highly doubt there'll be a piece of that pie for TSN outside of the local broadcast rights. But is there another streamer? Is there a Netflix? I mean, all of this is potentially on the table. But here's a clip from the press conference today. And the question was, from the release, can you expand a little bit on what it means that fewer blackouts will be in effect next season or the following season?
The release says fewer regional blackouts. Can you explain what that means, please?
I can share this with Gary. So in our negotiation, we have secured the opportunity to take more of the regional games that Sportsnet has and convert them to national games. So that means fewer blackouts and more national opportunities.
How much more games can fans expect to be turned from regional broadcasts into nationally televised games?
So we have secured the right for up to 10 more games on certain teams, but it will be a game time, a season decision based on every season, based on matchups. So I can't really give you quantified numbers, but there is the opportunity to convert all of our regional games for the Canucks, the Flames, the Oilers, and half of our Leaf games, half of the Leaf games, our half, and a few extra games from Winnipeg Jets and the Ottawa Senators.
And you have unlimited rights to bring in U.S. matchups till your heart's content, or till fans' hearts are content. So
our wonderful programmers and our president of Sportsnet will, who is, by the way, the best programmer in the country, will make those decisions as they evolve.
Well, the programmer's certainly getting his tires pumped by the bosses there at the presser today. And And hey, listen, that's good. I think Sportsnet's actually done a pretty good job of throwing on the Dallas-Seattle game or Anaheim Kings, on one of the channels later on when they don't have competing properties. But I don't think things will change very much. And it was interesting, Remo, that they mentioned the Winnipeg Jets and Ottawa Senators. I'm not exactly sure how that would work, considering TSN is going to have a deal for all of the local broadcast rights. My understanding was that they would be turning some of the games that they had the local broadcast rights for, a Calgary game, a Vancouver game, an Edmonton game, into a national game. Does that come at the expense of TSN and their Jets regional rights? I guess I'm not sure, but it was interesting to note that she mentioned Ottawa and Winnipeg there, who are both TSN properties locally.
Yeah, and just recapping the clip, that was Colette Watson, who's the president of Rogers Sports and Media, in a press conference today at the lovely brand new studio, Hustler there. And yeah, for TSN, they still have regional rights to Montreal, half of Toronto, Winnipeg, and Ottawa. And I was kind of surprised that she mentioned Winnipeg as well. I don't know if they could take over more games from TSN, but though they have one more season, after 2026, I guess those rights are up, and I'm curious what will happen. Will TSN continue to bid? Because there was some other news about TSN today as well in their leadership. What's happening with their rights going forward? Would Rogers buy those up to create some type of super channel? Like there is no, where they would have zero Canadian regional blackouts? I'm not sure. And I don't know, I just think the way that the Canadian cable is set up, it kind of tricks you when you go on the guide. Like it has a game, you're like, oh, why can't I watch this? And you're like, these damn blackouts. That's just how it is. Like you don't have any New York channels on your guide. You don't have Vegas channel. Like you can't watch those. You need the out of market package for that. So something, I thought that was an interesting comment there.
It was. Here's one more clip from it, and this is about the Amazon sublicense. Of course, Amazon bought the rights to Monday nights this year. It sounds like that will continue. Here's Richard Deitch asking about the future of the Amazon games.
Tony, is it your intention to continue to sublicense games to Amazon?
The answer is yes. We'll look to it as a possibility and a strong possibility. Today, we sublicense French content as well as streaming with Amazon, and those have been terrific partnerships. And as we look to the next 12 years, the agreement with the NHL is that we'll look to opportunities to continue to sublicense where it makes sense.
All right, so I would imagine that, listen, we're going to get another year of Amazon. This deal is going to kick in after next season for 12 more years. And if anything, I think there'll be more streamers involved, not less, moving forward. So that was a wrap of the news. But you mentioned TSN today, Remo, and we'll do more on this and hopefully get Stuart Johnson on. But widely reported that the president of TSN is leaving TSN to become the new commissioner of the Canadian Football League. And I had a great conversation with Dusty on the Lock Shop today on this. It sounds like a home run hire for the CFL. I have to admit, my first reaction to this was I was sort of stunned that he would leave TSN for this job, but a huge coup for the CFL announcing the 15th commissioner is Stuart Johnson, who had been at the helm of TSN for the last number of years.
Yeah, the CFL putting out the press release this morning. There were some reports late after the show, and they'll have an official announcement later this month. And it seems like they hired someone who would have big knowledge of the league, big knowledge of the broadcast landscape. I think it's certainly a good fit here for the CFL. So I'm looking forward to hearing from him what he has to say for his vision for the league, because I think their contract with TSN is coming up soon. And if TSN is going to have national hockey, are they going to look to continue the relationship with the CFL? Will the CFL look to have other, broadcasters chime in, or just keep it to one? So, and I'm sure there's other issues, non-broadcast related for the league. We're hearing about the salary cap going up this year, but this was the big news today from the CFL. We hadn't heard any names really Hustler rumored, we had always talked about, what if they brought in Mike Morreale, who's the commissioner of the CEBL, which has seen tremendous growth, since they began.
And a former CFL player.
And a former CFL player as well. But this is an interesting one. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring to the CFL.
Yeah, we'll have more on that in the coming days on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And hopefully at some point get the new commish to jump on WST and give his vision for the league moving forward. All right, we're going to talk a little golf coming up. The Masters coming up next week. And, of course, it is so great to have Breezy Bend back on board with us. And by my calculations, we'll be swinging it in less than 3 weeks out on the west side of the city at one of Manitoba's top private courses, just doing a massive clubhouse renovation, continued improvements to the course and the facility over the last number of years, and now hosting the Manitoba Open this year. Cannot wait to get out there and do shows from Breezy in and around this summer, and of course for the Manitoba Open. If you're thinking about a long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, contact our friend Corey Johnson, the GM, about getting on the waiting list for Breezy Bend going into the 2025 season. Now, we're going to talk some golf and get ready for the Masters with Pat Mayo of the Mayo Media Network and let you know, especially for those of you that like to bet golf, how you might be able to win a trip to the Canadian Open. But before we do that, let's give a big cheers to our friends down at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
Before we get to the Cool Bet lines, we've got some details on a very exciting contest that could send you to the Canadian Open in Toronto, courtesy of our pal, Patrick Mayo, the PME himself, who joins us here on WST right now. Pat, what's good, man? Great to have you back on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on. I haven't been on in ages, but, with the Masters coming up, we got a fun tournament in Valero this week that if you want to talk golf, in Feinberg, I suppose, isn't available, you talk to me.
Hey, well, no, we go right to the top today because, as I said, you and our friends at Coolbet are cooking up something that I think our listeners are going to be very interested in, because in a lot of ways, next week feels like the real start of the golf season. I mean, the Hardos have been on it for a number of weeks, but this is when, to casual fans or people that, are sort of trying to reconnect with the game, knowing that they're going to be playing soon, it is all about Augusta. But before we get to Augusta, and we'll mention this great Canadian Open contest in a minute, we got the Valero. And the Valero, I believe you referred to it as the Corey Connors Invitational earlier this year. This is last call for guys that don't have the invite to the Masters to get one. And it makes it a very unique tournament on tour.
Fun course, too, at TPC San Antonio. And it's been facilitated a lot of first-time winners, which is always nice because it's a win and in situation to the Masters. Like you mentioned, you're not previously qualified. So, Corey Connors can win this tournament for a third time, but he's already in the Masters. Like, give someone else a shot, Corey. And figure maybe pass it off to like Svensson or someone else. Maybe Adam Hadwin down the list. I don't even know if he's in the field or not. No, I'm not betting those guys this week because they're probably not going to win, but here we are. But it's an awesome layout. It's a fun course, and it looks like we're going to get a ton of wind on the weekend too, which could really ratchet up the difficulty.
I mean, when you're just looking at the course and the type of players that fit the Valero, outside of the need to win to get to Augusta, I mean, how does this play out? Because it does seem like there's a bit of a style of player, a type of player that's done very well at this event.
Ball strikers, because it's in Texas, you always get just wind out of nowhere anyway. And the one way that you can navigate yourself best through the wind is just be a flusher. I know that sounds easy, but there are certain guys who ball strike better than anyone else. And that's really Corey Connors' calling card, is that he's excellent off the tee. He's not long off the tee, but he's excellent off the tees. Very accurate, hits it off the sweet spot every single time. And it's the same thing with his irons. Being long irons, he's great with his wedges. His thing is he can't chip and he can't putt. But that hasn't been a problem, really, for a lot of players at this course over the years. Now, Akshay, who won last year, is someone who has vastly improved his putting every single year he's been on tour. He had the short putter. That wasn't working. He had to go to the super long putter, but now he's top 10 on tour in putting. And he putted so well at this tournament a year ago. And his chipping is still pretty bad, but he actually found himself in a lot of bunkers last year, which are pretty easy to get out of. If you're going to miss around the green at Valero, you want to miss into the bunkers and be able to control that spin rather than trying to pick it off the turf, because sometimes that can get a little bit trickier, unless that's absolutely your game, which for Akshay, it is absolutely not his game in that sense. Spieth has won here before, and not good Spieth, bad Spieth has won here before. Now, not the guy who was leading everyone tee to green. So you have your two ways to do it. You can be the ball striking maven, and if the winds are down, you can score at this course, no problem. But you need to be able to be lights out from 150 and in. So the best wedge players end up doing really well. But now that we add this extra element of the wind coming into it, that I do think it leans a little bit more to either your ultimate ball strikers or the guys that can get it up and down with the magic touch around the greens and make their 8-foot putts. And there's a lot of those guys that I like this week because you get to play it both ways. Guys that strike it above average, maybe not to the level of Connors or Fleetwood or some of the guys at the top, but they strike it better than most of the field, and they're magic around the greens, and they're making their putts. So it really does open up a vast landscape of guys from the top and bottom of the board, really, that you can go to.
Is there a guy or two that is a super elite ball striker that we're just worried about because they can't putt right now? And because we all know that putting can sometimes just change overnight.
It can. I mean, Connors is kind of both the times he won here, he was like second in putting and then fifth in putting. That never happens unless it's at this course for whatever reason. And that's the reason that's his only 2 wins on tour as well. He usually chips and putts so poorly that no matter how well he strikes it, it works out. If I was thinking about the player that you're talking about, it's a guy that I bet right now on Cool Bet, 90-1, Tom Hoge is sitting there. Tom Hoge is basically the best approach player in the field. Sometimes he doesn't drive it well. Most of the times it's okay. He doesn't need to lead the field in drive. Driving doesn't mean that much at this tournament unless you're Kevin Na, who once took a 16 at this course because he hit it out of bounds and tried to play it from the middle of the woods. He then took a chainsaw to that tree when he came back the following year. Fun video. You can never go find it. But if you can just keep it in play, just let the guy get dialed in with these wedges. That's what he does. And sometimes Hoagie putts, sometimes Hoagie doesn't putt. But he has a decent track record of Valero coming in. He's coming off leading the Players' Championship his last time out in strokes gained approach. He ended up coming third at the Players to Spawn and Rory. I really like him here this week. He's sort of like the homeless man's Corey Connors. He does certain things well, but he's just far less consistent, although that spike putting comes in a little bit more often than Connors, and you can get him at 8 times the price.
Hey, let me just ask you about Connors quickly. I mean, heading into next week, he it seems like he's been on a ton of leaderboards. He hasn't won yet, but he's been competitive. I mean, what do you make of Corey's game heading into Augusta next week?
It's fine. He's been bad at the Masters the last 2 years. I think people overlook that a lot, that they remember his first few times, the top 10s in 3 consecutive years. Well, then he missed the cut and didn't finish inside the top 30 a year ago. Comes in much better form right now, but he usually always plays well in Florida and Texas. That's sort of his sweet spot. It's actually kind of surprising that he's never won a Cognizant. To me, with Connors, with the way that his game breaks down, it feels like a PGA Championship or a U.S. Open would probably be more likely for him, or just the Players, because he plays so well in Florida. It's really hard to think that, well, you can do well at Augusta. His lack of hands, like, who is the last player that you can really think of that has no touch around the green that has won the Masters? I can't think of one.
It's a short list if there is one at all. I mean, it's
like Dustin.
But even when he was cooking, I mean, he would do things that most of the other guys probably, maybe could do on their best day, but he was just, DJ and a few of those live guys there. Well, what are your expectations for a DJ? What's the over-under on DJ's rounds coming up, considering where he's been?
He showed up, where was it when they just played? They just played in Singapore, and he was actually pretty good at that tournament after people were writing him off. I have no expectation for DJ at the Masters, unless he shows up to Doral this week, a place where he's won a few times in his career. When it was back on the PGA Tour. I mean, Doral's a tough course. It's a long course. It sets up perfectly for him. I've bet Bryson this week at 14-1 and Dean Burmeister, the defending champ, at 20-1 for Live Doral. But DJ's sort of the one live guy I look at and I'm like, like his Masters win came in that weird Masters in November. He won by 5 shots. He had won 4 of his previous 7 starts coming in. Like he was the undisputed #1 player in the world of the time of that happening. And he's had some good runs at Augusta over the years. But again, like when I say about like the all hands team, DJ's hands are good, but he's not Phil. He's not Patrick Reed for you. Like, how does Patrick Reed win the Masters? Because he is, he can get dialed in with his putter. His approach is close, but every time he gets in trouble, he has the short game shot to figure it out. And it's really hard. I mean, Scheffler is probably the greatest example of this. Put that guy, he's like the new Spieth. Put him anywhere put him in the middle of the pine straw. He will figure out a way to chip that to 3 feet and just go tap it in. You just can't give away strokes at the Masters. And with someone like Connors, the way that I would think about it is he's not going to put himself in very many bad positions, but he very rarely makes those 15, 20-foot putts that you need to make over the course of a tournament for birdie or eagle, whatever it might be, in order to really rise on the leaderboard. And he's not making enough of those 11-foot par saves when the time comes. Because when he misses a green, he's just not going to be close. And that becomes the biggest issue. He puts so much pressure on his like mid-range putting because his short game is so bad that you just start bleeding strokes away. It's the same reason that I don't think that Bryson's ever going to win it.
Yeah, I mean, Bryson, what was the year he had that incredible start?
That was last year. But why? Bryson has one path at the Masters, in my mind. I could be dead wrong. But he has no touch around the greens, and that becomes the problem. How was he first-round leader a year ago? Well, it rained for 2 days straight. The greens were so soft. Everything was so receptive that he was able to hit the ball so high, and it landed exactly where he hit it. And Bryson's awesome at that sort of game. That's how he was so good at Pinehurst as well. With that apex height, the greens at Pinehurst, I just got back from Pinehurst. I tried the Bryson bunker shot. It's impossible. I don't know how he made it. And like it's not that Bryson's not good around the greens, is that there's a certain feel and touch you need, especially at Augusta National, where it can't just be one way. We saw it at the U.S. Open of the PGA Championship with Bryson last year, where you can play that bump and run onto a hill and know it's exactly going to run out to this spot. You hit it to 6 feet. Bryson's an immaculate putter. He makes those putts. Augusta's just different. You need to be able to play that high spinner fade or high spinner flop shot on one deck and get it to spin back a little bit, but not too much, because that might go into the water. That just doesn't compute with the computer brain that Bryson has. It just doesn't work that way for him.
Pat Mayo's with us, getting ready for the Valero and next week the Masters. And Pat, before I ask you just a couple questions about the way people should maybe look at the Masters board and when they want to put their bets in, before people are even putting their wagers in for the Valero and the Masters, fill our listeners in on how they can maybe join you and the gang in Toronto for the Canadian Open, Blue Jays, and the Big PMA live show.
So in conjunction with CoolBet, you'll probably have this link down in the description. You can go opt into it right now. If you're not at CoolBet and you want to win a trip to the Canadian Open and Jays tickets, you can get your hotels are paid for, your flights are paid for, and maybe you'll come too and come to my live show. You don't even listen. You get tickets to my live show. That's on the Saturday, PME Live with me, Feinberg, Cuss. The whole gang are going to be there, an audience of around 400 people. So very exclusive tickets right next to Skydome, actually, at the Rec Room. But you don't have to go to that if you don't want to. If you don't care about my show, you can just go to the Canadian Open again that day if you want to. But in conjunction with CoolBet, for every if you have to opt in on the page on CoolBet to the Pat Mayo Experience Canadian Open giveaway, once you opt in on CoolBet, for every $10 you bet on Valero, the Masters, and the following week at the Heritage, you gain one ballot into the random draw giveaway. You win, it's you. I mean, it's for 2 people. So it's for you and whoever else you want to bring. The free trip to Toronto, the Thursday through Sunday. Jays tickets, the 1 day in the suite. Friday at the Canadian Open. Saturday is my show. Sunday at the Canadian Open. And then you go home. If you really want to pass on my show, they'll probably give you Canadian Open tickets again that day too, if you want to. So free trip to Toronto is not bad. As someone who does not live in Toronto, I live in Halifax right now. I spent 15 years there. I feel like Toronto gets a bad rep, but Toronto in the middle of June is going to be fun being downtown.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer, especially for those of you that have been cool bettors for a long time. But I mean, I've often said, obviously we're betting everything, but the golf odds was what originally got me there. And I can tell you that if you're going to be doing it anyways and looking at a few of your favorites, you may as well opt in on this, and maybe you'll be hanging with the boys and getting out to the Canadian Open. The link is in the description for this, and of course you can go at the PME on X and all the socials and get that link. And it's very simple. Just before you make any bets, opt in and then go nuts, and good luck for this. Pat, as far as the Masters goes, we are about a week out. Often we'll see lines move on Monday. Just for people that maybe haven't done this but want to get some bets in for the Masters, when's the best time to do it?
If you see a number that's still deep, and that's I have 3 bets in for the Masters so far that I've piled up from between January and now. Most of those numbers are gone. There's still one pretty decent one, but I don't know how bad it gets. It is the Monday, because the Monday is the great reset of the board. So everyone, the way you have to think about the futures market in golf, and it wasn't always like this, is that it used to be reactionary to how people were playing. So obviously Victor Hovland wins 2 weeks ago, and he wins at 80-1 to win the Valspar. The same week he was 80-1 to win the Valspar, which had none of the top players. And I guess Xander was there coming off an injury, and JT. No Rory, no Scotty. It wasn't the strongest field. It was okay. He was 80-1 to win. That same week, he was 80-1 to win in Tampa. His odds were still 25-1 to win the Masters. So it feels like right now on the golf futures board, no, you never fall down. So wherever you were originally set, if you were high up, you will stay high up. And if you play well going in, like someone like Akshay. So I haven't bet on Akshay to win the Masters at 100-1. Akshay is now 55 to win the Masters because he had a great Players Championship. He's been playing great golf, and now he's here at Valero again, where he's the defending champion, and he's a lefty. Always got to go with the lefties at Augusta if you're looking for some long shots. But they've cut his odds in half, and they haven't moved anyone else down the board. So now we have like 40 guys that are 55-1 and below. Come Monday, all those guys get reset for what their odds should actually be throughout the course of the week. So unless you're really dead set on finding a long shot on the board, which I like to do, and know that number is not going to be the same, you're best off to wait.
Yeah, so Monday's the huge day with the odds reset, and you can get over to CoolBet. Of course, we'll hit that on the Lock Shop and here on WST as well. And I would highly recommend you subscribe and get locked into Mayo Media Network. Always highly entertaining throughout the year, but Pat, this is one of the biggest weeks for you and the fellas. I mean, fill people in on the slate of content you've got coming out right through the tournament, because I'm sure you guys will be at it after they start as well.
Oh, of course. It's 10 straight days of the Masters. In fact, we did a Masters draft, me, Cust, and Jeff, on Tuesday, and we drafted players for the majors as well. You can do those along, like there's underdog best ball drafts going on where it's just majors only, which I really like as well. Those are really fun contests if you're looking to get in for a bit lower stakes and try to win like 50 grand or something like that. But starting on Thursday and Friday will be the first 2 master shows. I'm doing a player-by-player preview. So we're going over the top 50 players in the field, telling you what they've done so far this year. It's more rapid fire. Me and Matt Gannon are doing that. And then the last man, at least of right now, into the field at the Masters, Michael Kim, got himself in on the number 50th in the world. Mike's been a friend of the show for a while. He will be joining me on Friday to talk through, what's been going on with him, why he's so much better now, getting into his second ever Masters, breaking down the course. Mike is always a good time anytime he comes on and getting his insights. I know he's so fired up to have made Augusta that it's just going to be joyful to talk to him based on the year that he's had so far. So I'm really excited for that. I do a comprehensive research show on the weekend where I break down both the course, the key stats, the players, everything you need to know, the info dump. And a lot of this information is also both the links and the write-up if you're not someone who wants to listen to a podcast or watch a video. You just want to read it. My newsletter is absolutely free. Huss, I know you're on that list. Mayo Media on Substack is where you can find it. I'm also giving away 5 separate prizes of $200, just straight cash, to people who enter the contest. Like, you can find it all in the newsletter. It's all up there right now already. I won't bore you with it, but just subbing to the newsletter, the free newsletter, get your ballots in the draw. So you may as well do that as well. And I'll have content, I think 4 times between now and lock at the Masters, and then our regular slate of shows. Feinberg and I and Cust on Monday, me, Cam, and Byron for the best bets on Tuesday, me and Tambo for DraftKings picks, and final bets, the weather breakdown on Wednesday. Then I'm live again on Wednesday night, taking everyone's questions if they have questions about the Masters. Thursday recap around 1, Cut Sweat live on Friday. It's my birthday on Saturday, so I'm taking it off, and I will be in no shape to talk about the Masters live on Saturday evening, but I'll be back with you on Sunday for after the round. Then we're recapping it on the Monday. We got so much content coming out. I love the Masters. It is my single favorite week of any sporting event of the year. I get pretty hyped for week 1 of football as well, but this is where I feel like we do our best work at Mayo Media and on the Pat Mayo Experience, that we really hammer down on every single angle that you might want to have this week. So we always greatly appreciate all the new people that come in and telling their friends about the show, sharing around the show, whatever it might be, because this is, as you mentioned, a lot of people in my golf bubble don't quite realize that this is the week where people do start to pay attention, like you mentioned. Like, yeah, we can all think it's the Farmers or the Century. It's not. It's the Masters.
It is the Masters, and I mean, we're already getting a lot of people in the chat talking about it right now. And listen, I can't wait for next week. But I'll tell you, folks, this is nobody does it better come Masters week. And listen, if you want to just yuck it up with the guys on the Monday show and have some fun, hear them talking about it, hit that. But there is so much that Pat dives into that if you're there for it, it is waiting for you, and it will be throughout the week at Mayo Media Network. Give them a sub on YouTube and get in the description. Hit that link, get into the newsletter, but especially if you're making bets, especially at Coolbet, opt in, and maybe we'll see you in Toronto for the Canadian Open. Pat, thanks so much for doing this. Say hi to the fellas, and we'll look forward to catching up real soon. All right, good stuff. Yeah, listen, if you are playing at Coolbet, by the way, I know someone was asking about the promo code. If you haven't played there before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on that first deposit, and make sure to put in can open in the promos. Opt in, and every time you bet $10 on golf over the next 3 weeks, you'll get a ballot for that trip to the Canadian Open. Speaking of Coolbet, let's get over to the Coolbet lines. Had a fun time with Dusty today and Pat making our picks for the Valero. We'll have a little bit more from Pat in just a minute with his picks on the Valero Open. But let's check out what's going on tonight in the National Hockey League. Quieter night than last night. Huge game between the Panthers and the Leafs. The Leafs are 1 point up on Tampa, 2 points up on the Panthers. And this game is a pick'em, straight up pick'em. I guess so it was minus 109. Now it's Leafs minus 110, Panthers minus 108. For all intents and purposes, a dead heat. This is a tough spot for Florida. Playing on back-to-back nights, playing their third game in 4. But they will definitely be up for this one after losing back-to-back games to the Montreal Canadiens of all teams. So that the feature game tonight, I believe that's televised nationally. Panthers at Maple Leafs. Now, other games tonight, you've got the Capitals. Ovi got one last night, continuing to chase Wayne. The Caps are in Carolina to take on the Hurricanes. Hurricanes are a big minus 213 favorite. Caps, of course, traveling last night and playing in the second end of back-to-backs. How about this one, Remis? Huge game for the New York Rangers, who are trying to keep pace with the Montreal Canadiens, with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And they've got the Minnesota Wild, who come off 1 point out of their home and home with the New Jersey Devils. They're going to MSG and then the Island right now, and of course are 1 point behind St. Louis. But with the game in hand, Minnesota's plus 134 underdogs on the road. The Rangers minus 158. You got the Avalanche coming off those back-to-back losses to Calgary and St. Louis on the road in Chicago. No surprise, a huge favorite, minus 370. If you think the Blackhawks can win, you'll get 3-1 on that. The Avalanche puck line, by the way, minus 1.5. And then Seattle and Vancouver to take on the Canucks. I'm actually leaning Seattle in this game today, Remo. We talked about it in the lock shop, but I kind of feel like the Jets closed the casket on the Canucks in the casket match on Sunday, and I don't know how much they have left. And listen, Seattle, played hard against Dallas, weren't able to get the win. That's going to be a much looser team. I think there's a lot of disappointment in that Vancouver room right now, and I kind of like Seattle to win this game on the road as a plus 127 dog.
Yeah, I can see that. Vancouver, they've had a interesting season from an off-ice perspective, and it was kind of like a one-way casket match. I mean, there's no casket getting closed.
That's true.
On the Jets if they would have lost on Sunday. But yeah, Vancouver's playoff hopes, it's kind of been decided now in the West. It's all just about seeding. with St. Louis going on this heater. I just saw Minnesota, they're at 90+ percent to make the playoffs as per Money Puck. Vancouver, if they beat the Kraken, they'll increase their odds to 9.6. So very slim playoff hopes, but it seems like Vancouver and Calgary, realistically not going to make it this year. And, going to be up to Rick Tocchet now to try to get them going the end of the year. And what happens with him and his future with the organization. Something, the off-ice drama doesn't end there in Vancouver.
Yeah. Speaking of, while we're on Coolbet and the NHL page, here are the odds to make the playoffs. I mean, Wild basically in -1667, Blues -1250, which means the Flames are +550, the Canucks are 10-1, Utah's 30-1 in the West. West all but settled is just where teams are going to end up. East, very different. Montreal has the lead right now. They're +110. The Rangers are +250. The Blue Jackets are 3-1. And the Detroit Red Wings and New York Islanders still hanging around are 15-1 to make the playoffs. The odds for the Central Division changed with the Jets' loss last night. The Jets now -233 favorites, and that's been steadily dropping as Dallas has just continued to win. Dallas +150 to win the Central. And after last night, Leon and Connor Hellebuck were -105 each for the Hart Trophy. An Oiler win, a Jets loss, and that swung the odds big time. Draisaitl now -169. Hellebuck +135. But I loved the confidence of our buddy Chris Meaney, who joined us earlier today on Helly for Hart. Now, as far as tonight goes, we do have a partner parlay that we cooked up. I mentioned we were kind of leaning on Seattle. We're going to take the Leafs in this big matchup against Florida. We will take Colorado on the puck line in Chicago, -1.5, and we'll take the Kraken. That's +629 with the boost up to +723 right now in the Coolbet combo cards. Nice super boost tonight. Ohtani to get a hit. Quinn Hughes to get a point. Boosted from -125 to +110. And a couple beauties that we talked about with Pat. He's got one up in the combo cards. And did we get a Patty Knows Puck today? No, but we've got a Lock Shop golf parlay. Ash K. Batya, Keegan Bradley, Corey Connors, all to place top 20. Just about 10-1, boosted to +945. And Patty's got his. Patty's been doing well. He cashed this last week. Ludwig Oberg, the favorite to be top 20. And Bradley, Batya, and Connors, all to make the cut at +295. So a bunch of great boosted offerings in the combo cards at the top of the page. Then, of course, you can click on the exclusives and jump on that Pat exclusive for Daniel Berger at the tournament as well. We're not done yet, though, because with Pat joining the show today, figured we'd pick his brain and get his thoughts and his picks for the Valero Open. All odds over at Coolbet. Here's what Pat had to say about the tournament this weekend.
On Coolbet. So $10, for every $10 you wager, you get the ballots in the draw. Here we go. I'll have my newsletter coming out this evening for Valero. I'm still squishy on whether I want to bet on Akshay or not, but I'm starting at 30-1. Keegan Bradley is there. I love Keegan Bradley this week. We talk about ball striking. He's got it in spades. He's playing great. And I do think he's going to play himself onto this Ryder Cup team. So he needs to start picking up wins along the way. He's 30-1. If you go underneath the exclusive tab, exclusive offers at Coolbet, you will see that the Pat Mayo boost gets you Daniel Berger up from 33 all the way up to 40-1. So I love Daniel Berger this week. He and Keegan were my two strongest leans coming into the week. Berger's just been playing out of his mind and doesn't have quite the results to show for it. He's won in Texas before earlier in his career. He's getting back to that point, and he's already in the Masters. So it's a pretty stress-free week for him as well. Bud Cauley, I bet at 55-1. I actually put Berger and Cauley together as a top 20 parlay, which is on the main page at Coolbet right now. So that gets boosted from 6-1 to +699, if that's more of your feel. And again, I like them both ball striking wise, scrambling wise. I think in both elements of this tournament, depending on the weather, they can succeed. My biggest real outlier here, Huss, is Tom Kim. He's 40-1, 45-1, right around that range. He's been terrible, but his approach game is off the charts good, that you just need him to make a putt. If he makes a putt, all of a sudden you're looking a whole lot better. And he's like candidate to come in dead fucking last place. Don't think that's not a thing. DFL has Tom Kim written all over it. But all the guys in that range, we've seen him win so many times already, being a 21-year-old, that it's there. The approach play is already hot. If just some of his other game comes along, that's where you're at. So those are the 4 that you should really be looking at. If you really want to spend your $10 to win, I don't know, 900 or 1,000, whatever it might be, you got Chuck Hoffman, the king of this tournament. He's 90-1. Tom Hoagie is 100-1. I love both those guys. And then Stephen Fisk. I'll tell you about Stephen Fisk. He can't putt at all. He can't make a 3-foot putt. But what if he does, Huss? He's 200, 250-1. Maybe he's better for your top 20 market, your top 10 market. I don't really care about that. I'm here to win some big money. And you don't need to wager much to win if Stephen Fisk comes along. Do you remember how many years I was betting Luke List?
Yeah, the Luke List army led by Pat.
Hey, he got there. He won at Torrey Pines the 1 week ever in 4 years. He made a few putts, and it paid off in spades. He won it at 95-1, recouped all the value with him that there ever was. Fisk is 200-1 now. We have guys at 200-1. There's very low expectations. But his, when I model this all out and take a look at my data, he lines up like he is Luke List. And I'm well, if I was going to bet on Luke List all those years at 90-1, may as well bet on this guy at 200-1. So Stephen Fisk, a name you've probably never heard of, but could do some damage here.
Well, it's funny. I will add in the Stephen Fisk to the list. I was thinking Tom Kim, kind of from what we were talking about earlier, with guys that can hit the hell out of the ball and strike it, but just have not been able to putt. And if that switches over for 4 days, maybe we'll see. He's if nothing else, he's a fun guy to follow and to cheer for, Tom Kim.
Oh yeah. Tom Kim, when we were at President's Cup, he was awesome.
The best.
And then under the Masters tab right now, there's only one that I would go for. I have Akshay at 100. I have Robert McIntyre at 150-1. I have also bet Sergio Garcia at 175-1. He is dominating on Live right now. Neiman's been the best. Sergio's been second best. Sergio is inspired to make this European Ryder Cup team, and he can't do that without great showings at the majors. He's only in 2. Right now, he's in the Masters and PGA Championship. He needs to play well in these things to get himself in to the U.S. Open and Open Championship. There are very few players in the world right now who are as hot as Sergio. If you go underneath the Masters tab and see the odds, he's still 125-1. I think those are really good odds for a guy who has a legitimate chance of winning.
Hey, you knew we'd pick the big brain of Patty Mayo if we had him on the day before a tournament. And again, listen, I know a bunch of you are regular viewers or listeners, him, Feinberg, Tim. The Monday show is one of my favorite pods every single week, but Masters Week, Pat beefs up big time, and there's going to be some great stuff over there. And good luck to everyone for getting into the contest. I think you all know from my work with CoolBet that the trips and the prizes they do in these promos are absolutely unbelievable, and that would be a really fun weekend in Toronto if you're able to get in on that. Hey, Reem, before we go, we should mention or maybe give a shout out to our friends over at the Jets. Some more good WST content in the new runway, which was played in between periods yesterday.
Yeah, I love during the Jets games and when they show the runway content, some very cool behind the scenes footage and all the game footage with their cameras together. It looks incredible, but I got a big smile when they started playing clips of you talking between clips of Paul Edmonds and Kevin Sawyer, and it says audio courtesy of Winnipeg Sports Talk. So shout out to Sarah and everyone at the Winnipeg Jets involved with Runway for including some of our commentary in the episodes. Check out the full ones at the Winnipeg Jets YouTube channel. But that snippet yesterday from the Dallas game, very cool.
Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate that. And obviously love having them on the program as well. Sarah and Jamie and all the staff that put together all of the behind the scenes content that fans just cannot get enough of. All right, gang, that's going to do it for us. Fun show today. Thanks to Pat for jumping on. Give him a follow at the PME. Chris Meaney, our boy. Great to talk to Meaney. And of course, Murat Tesh. We're going to have a big one tomorrow. Actually, Reem was away for a couple days. Connor's going to be stepping in. We'll chop it up with Connor about the Vegas game tomorrow and, of course, Friday as well. And, hey, we're playing Vegas tomorrow. You know what that means. Gary Lawless is going to join us on the program. Rawicki as well. And I think we'll have Mike Zeisberger coming in. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about this big one tonight between the Leafs and the Panthers and the upcoming Stanley Cup playoffs. That is going to do it for us. Again, thanks to our guests. Thanks to all the sponsors that make WST happen every day, and everyone for checking out the show, both on podcast and live on YouTube. Folks, have a great evening, and join us tomorrow. We move on to Sin City. Jets and Knights tomorrow. We'll set it up starting at 1 p.m. live right here on YouTube on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great night.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.